What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the part 3 of a story where Issei became a villain and had the Omnitrix. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more information. Now, let's get into part 3. Sekiryutei's Gremory, or Lucifer, had a nervous look on his face because in front of him was Issei with a look of disinterest that he gave, so he decided to talk to him at once. Sekiryutei, could you lend me some of your time to talk about something important with you? He said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix arched an eyebrow at the words I hear. Issei. Lucifer. He said coldly. If it's the same thing, then get straight to the point. He said without giving much importance to the Mao Lucifer. Sekiryutei. Well. He said, before putting on a serious look. The factions have decided to release the goddess Nyx with certain conditions. He said, to which he called the attention of the Red Dragon. Issei. Let's see. He said, while extending his hand. You are putting conditions on me just to free her, and who said that I agree with all this? He said coldly. You must be joking. He said mockingly. Sekiryutei. I'm sorry, I'm talking worse than that, he said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix only stared at him for a few moments before starting to laugh. Issei. Ha ha ha. While holding his stomach for the laughter and tears were coming out of his. No thank you, I don't want anything that comes from people like you, he said, as he recovered from the laughter. Sekiryutei was incredulous at the Red Dragon's words, he had refused without being able to listen to such conditions. Sekiryutei. At least listen to the conditions that can be a benefit for you. He tried to say, as he pulled a sealed letter out of a pocket dimension. For some reason this attracted attention, to which he snatched said letter from the hands of the Mao Lucifer, slowly opened said document with tranquility, which he left still beside the sofa. This caught the attention of the Mao Lucifer. Issei. Let's see what are their agreements, or rather what size will be the trap they are going to try to put on me. Thought with a devilish smile. Slowly he activate the Omnitrix with a look of coldness, where he searched with curiosity for the alien who will be perfect to review said agreement. Upon finding the perfect alien he only set out to select said alien. Ah yes. Grey matter. He said calmly, which caught the attention of the Mao Lucifer, of why he chose said alien that looks like Issei's teacher. It's time to enter lawyer mode. He said with a mocking tone in his voice. But before he could say anything, he saw how Grey Matter began to review the document with all the concentration in the world. For a few moments Sekiryutei saw how he frowned and then drew a smile on his face. From one moment to another he returned to his human form, where he could only see the document in his hands with indifference, which he just left on a table next to him. Issei. Seriously, you think I'm stupid to accept such nonsense? He said coldly, which Sekiryutei opened his eyes with surprise. Apart from getting information, it seems that you want to use me as a weapon to defend your people. He said mockingly, which Sekiryutei did not know how to respond to those statements of the Red Dragon. Sekiryutei. That. He wanted to say that it wasn't true, but it seems that there was no way to defend himself. Issei. Don't try to lie to me, Lucifer, you can't handle him, and you're looking for someone else to defend a joke like you. He said coldly, while referring to the leaders of all factions. Sekiryutei. Look I'm trying to find something to help us. I know you're mad at all of us, but you must understand that we care about our people. He said seriously, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix just shook his head. Issei. You know, maybe it was a mistake to fight with Albedo and stay in the shadows, so you guys could at least go out on the battlefield to defend your people. He said mockingly, to which Sekiryutei lowered his head. Sekiryutei. I'm sorry He apologized to the aforementioned. Tell me, what do you want from us? He said with frustration at having to give in, because if Issei declares what has happened, the alliance was going to receive a blow from which they were not going to be able to recover. Issei. You know the meaning of those words, don't you? He said with mockery, to which Sekiryutei slowly nodded his head. You and I know very well that when all this is over I'm going to be discarded like an old rag, and I refuse to accept such a thing. He said with boredom. Sekiryutei sees as the wielder of the Omnitrix takes a hand to his chin. Sekiryutei. Then there is nothing in return that you want. He said with a lowered gaze. Issei. I have never said no, but like you I have certain conditions. He said seriously, to which Sekiryutei stood watching without being able to believe what the wielder of the Omnitrix is saying. Sekiryutei. What are your demands? He asked with some curiosity. Issei. They are not too extravagant like you, I like something simpler if you can. He said calmly. It seems like a fight between my brother and me, no one will interfere until the other gives up or cannot continue. He said with a smile. It will be in a field dimension, the place can be random, there are no limitations, he can go with everything, and I will do the same. He said with mockery. Sekiryutei. That's all you want, he said in disbelief, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix shook his head. Issei. If he wins I accept this plans of yours. He said with boredom, while pointing to the document he read a moment ago. But if I win I'll be able to ask for whatever I want, it's simple right, devil. Don't you think? He said with mockery, to which Sekiryuutei just gritted his teeth for such a proposal. Time was something they didn't count on, but if this was the only way to be able to have the wielder of the Omnitrix on his side, all that was left was to slowly nod his head. Issei. If that was all, it's time for me to have my MR smoothie, have a nice day, bye bye. He said with a fake smile etched on his face. Time skip. After Sekiryuutei's Lucifer retired, it could be seen that Issei Haidu went up to his room with great tranquility, and that he feels a strange sensation when he touches the handle of his door, to which he quickly opened the door, where he saw that the light was off. He slowly closed the door behind him, where a smile was drawn on his face, to say a few words. Issei. Your friends are worried about why you don't show up. He said coldly, letting it be seen that a person was behind the red dragon. I don't care about them anymore, master. She said. Miss Elizabeth together with the goddess Artemis and the Valkyrie Gondel fulfilled their mission to open my eyes. She said coldly. Issei. Well, for the moment I want you to continue behaving as you have done before. He said coldly, to which she nodded. You are going to report to me what happened inside the DXD group. He said coldly, as he slowly turned around. Just to see Valerie Lucifer with a serious look on her face, which nodded firmly, she slowly knelt down and extended her hand where a divine dividing gem could be seen. Valerie. It says not that much, but I feel like he would be an excellent offering for you. She said with a lowered gaze. She was nervous that she wouldn't offer something better to her new leader and master. Issei opened his eyes with surprise, who quickly took the gem in her hands. Apparently Valerie Lucifer gave him one of the two pieces to improve the Omnitrix. Issei. You've done a good job in offering me this piece, he said with a smile on his face. You'd better back off. He could not finish speaking when he heard some words that caught his attention from his new slave. Valerie. Master, you should accept the engagement contract. She said nervously, which made a vein appear on the wielder of the Omnitrix's forehead. Issei. Explain yourself. He demanded angrily, to which Valerie nervously nodded her head. Valerie. There are people who can be very useful and more so if you opens their eyes like me. She said with a smile, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix raised an eyebrow not convinced. For example, Laisha asked her if her uncle is a Juka Beelzebub or Valerie Teeps with a Sephiroth growl. She gave her point of view. Issei. I'm not going to lower myself to be the weapon of some scum like them. He said coldly, to which Valerie timidly nodded her head. Valerie. I am sorry master for thinking about such a thing. She is sorry to say such words to her master. Issei. You can leave now, but don't forget that the only one you obey is me. He said, before taking Valerie by the chin, who slowly nodded her head. 3 days later. The leaders of the factions had once again met to discuss a particular problem, which was the proposal of the Sekiryuutei, where it seemed an insult that now they are at the hands of the only one who could face Albedo. Bajuka. Then let's accept an all-out fight between the wielders of Crom Cruach and Drag. He said without being able to believe it. Zeus. If there is no other, but we must put a condition to limit it. He said seriously. Athena. Father, are you serious? She said seriously and a little guiltily, but it seemed that no one noticed. Zeus. I'm sorry daughter, but if that's the only way to defeat the Sekiryuutei, we'll have to do it. He said coldly. Odin. In that case I offer Gondel to create traps in this dimension. He said seriously, at which everyone turned to see the All-Father. Athena. If there is no other way we should do it. She said seriously, to which everyone nodded their heads, if they were going to alter the dimension, and the place was one where Dai Haidu had an advantage. Bajuka. In that case I will create a seal to prevent the use of the boosted gear or block it for the time being. He said seriously. Michael. I'll see what I can do with the heaven system to help him. He informed the Maya Beelzebub. Artemis. They are fucking cheating, but what can I expect from people like them? She thought coldly, before seeing her younger sister with a supportive smile, but in reality it was a mocking smile. Athena. In that case, how soon will this raiding game be? She asked seriously, to which everyone was silent for a moment. Bajuka. In a week it will be more than enough time to have everything ready. He said, to which everyone nodded their heads. After a few moments everyone had gone out to rest from the meeting that everyone had. Far away from them were Artemis and Athena, the latter seemed extremely nervous. Artemis. I've never seen you like this. Catching the attention of the goddess of wisdom. It's like you don't want to be caught doing something bad. She said with a smile. Athena. You don't understand sister, this may help or may harm all of us. She said nervously. If Isama finds out about all this. He may. Artemis. Don't worry about things like this is all about protecting innocent people. She told her with a kind smile. Apparently she hasn't noticed how she called the red dragon by his first name. She thought, seeing that Athena didn't pay attention to what came out of her own lips. Athena. You're right, Artemis. She said with a small smile. Artemis. Fine, but putting all this aside, you have prepared your things. She said calmly, to which Athena nodded her head. Athena. Yes, but with all this that has happened, I won't be able to do what I was planning. She said with frustration of not being able to keep a closer eye on Issei. Artemisa. This about not trusting anyone seems like an obsession of yours, but I can't blame you. She said coldly, but in that she sees as the necklace shine for a moment. Athena. Yes, but all this aside, I should take a little vacation when all this is over, she said with a smile. Artemis. Yes, but on an island where men are forbidden. She said coldly, to which Athena shook her head at her older sister's attitude. The necklace in the night shone, where Athena saw herself serving Issei, changing her perspective slowly, and if not it was a breakthrough, but Athena did not seem to notice anything, as she did not remember anything of what she has been dreaming for the last 3 days. One of the small changes was that she was putting aside her research about Issei Haidu for the dream or for more important things, according to the words of Athena herself. In addition to using a boosted gear gem brought its benefits, one of them was to create an attraction link in Athena towards Issei Haidu, but slowly, which increased with the passing days. Athena. I should look for more information now. She thought, seeing how there were several people who have lived with Issei Haidu. Artemisa. Sister, what are you thinking about? She asked, drawing Athena's attention. Athena. It's nothing, it's just my things, you shouldn't worry about it. She said calmly, not wanting to worry her sister. What was I going to do? She wondered mentally, not remembering what she was going to do. Guo Academy. Ingvild had a bored look on her face, apparently she was not paying attention to her classes because of the images that flashed through her mind. Ingvild. Maybe there is a way to reason with Issei Sama, she thought sadly, she didn't know what to do. Maybe I could. She thought with a look of defeat as she didn't know who to look to for help. Slowly she turned to look at the window, where she could see a specific person, where a countenance of anger was being drawn on her face. Ingvild. I have to do my best to get away from him. She thought coldly, seeing Dai Haidu walking next to Kaneko to the occult club. But I want to see his face when he finds out that I'm not his queen anymore, she thought with a mocking smile on her face. Then she turned her eyes to the teacher, where she decided to think about something else. She prefers to be in classes than near her old king. She hated him with every more than ever, and if she saw him right now she would not hesitate to kill him. Skip time. Ingvild Leviathan was walking to the boutique, she needed to get clothes, at least no one was following her, that gave her more relief to be able to shop without any issues, but when entering Kuomall, she could see many people passing from one side to the other. Ingvild. Apparently it's not going to be so easy. She thought with her eyes down, so she approached a sign where there was a map of all the Kuo stores. Let's see where it is. She said curiously, while looking for the nearest store with her eyes. In another part of the store there was a guy who was about Kaneko's height, elderly, he was wearing white pants, rather he seemed to be wearing a lion tamer suit that fit him something big, where there were several people surrounded watching his show. People to see the great Sublimino show, not for nothing am I a great hypnotist. He said with a smile, as he saw the people around. I know many can't believe me, but please a volunteer from the audience passed by, don't be shy. He said with a smile. Many people approached, where seconds later everyone was with a lost look on their face. After a few minutes of finishing with his show he left them all with a satisfied look on his face. Sublimino. It's a good thing you don't find those plumbers in Japan, he said with satisfaction, as he pulled a large bag of money out of his clothes. So you are also here, Sublimino? Said one person, to which Sublimino slowly turned behind him, only to see Albedo in his Galvan form. Sublimino. What are you doing here? He asked with a little nervous. Albedo. Me just walking around the place. He said, but Sublimino did not believe any word. But leaving aside my beautiful walk, I need you to do me some favors for me. He said with a smile, to which Sublimino was intrigued by said favor. Sublimino. And what is this favor about? He asked seriously, to which Albedo showed in a hologram the image of 3 girls in particular. Albedo. These girls have been a headache to my student. He said coldly. In particular I need you to make them. He began to tell his plan, which subliminally could not help but smile at such an idea. Sublimino. Not for nothing you are an evil genius. He said with a laugh that made Albedo smile. Albedo. Thank you for the compliment. He said calmly. If you can with this mission that I just asked you. He said, to which Sublimino only raised a thumb in signal to leave it in his hands. Sublimino. Alright, I must return to work, but consider the job done. he said calmly. When he left he stayed for a few moments observing the place, and then also he left. Ingvild is seen with some bags in her hands. Shopping distracted her from all the problems she had in mind, but when she was on the escalator, she could observe from a distance a banner of the Sublimino show. Ingvild. A lot of people gather, maybe it's something interesting. She thought for a moment as she exited the escalators and walked in the direction of the banner. At that moment she could see how someone of Kaneko's same class dressed as a tamer came on stage with a smile on his face. Sublimino. Sorry for the delay, but the great Sublimino has returned from his break, he said with a smile. So now I'm going to choose one of you to pass here in front. I'm looking with my eyes for a person. Slowly Sublimino realized that there were several boys from Kuo Academy, so looking for the girls that Albedo ordered him was going to be easier. Sublimino. Let's see whom I can choose from all of you, he said calmly, until he saw one person in particular. He pointed to a guy. Ingvild recognized him instantly. Look of disgust formed on her face. She seriously wanted to see him humiliated, not knowing that said wish was going to be fulfilled. Sublimino. Tell me your name, young man, he said elegantly, to which he adjusted his glasses. Motohama. My name is Motohama. He introduced himself, to which he Sublimino pulled out his watch from his pocket. Sublimino. Very well, in that case because we don't make a demonstration of my great power, he said, to which the whole audience nodded. Some girls from the Kuo Academy looked at him with a small blush. Well, are you interested in the show, Miss Ingvild? Said a voice. Ingvild slowly turned to look at her shoulder, where she could see Albedo. Ingvild. Albedo. She said quietly, to which he only looked at her for a few moments. Albedo. So you already know, huh, but it doesn't matter, he said without taking much importance to his identity being discovered. Foolish human, he said. This caught Ingvild's attention. Ingvild. But I don't feel any magical power from him, she said, to which Albedo just chuckled. Albedo. You just watch, he said calmly. The show is just starting, he said, while paying attention to the show, which was imitated by Ingvild. Sublimino. Watch the clock carefully, he said calmly. The boy only nodded. When I count to 3 you will be completely asleep, he said with a smile. 1, 2, 3. He snapped his fingers where Motohama started snoring. When Ingvild saw this scene, she thought it was just a trick, so she was going to leave quietly. Albedo. Stay, I can assure you it's no joke, he said with a smile on his face. At that moment it was observed how Motohama would spend the most embarrassing moments of his life. First Sublimino forced him to answer some questions, which he failed shamefully, as he had to imitate an elephant, but the one that Ingvild enjoyed the most was that of imitating a pig. Sublimino. Now to finish this great show, I will ask you 3 questions that I will make you answer with all the honesty in the world, he said with an innocent voice. Motohama simply nodded his head, to which Sublimino raised a finger in an epic way. Sublimino. The first question is, he said in a mysterious voice. What is your biggest secret? He asked with a smile on his face. Motohama. My personal collection of momo-erotic series, he said with an expressionless tone. Sublimino. Wow, who knew that you had such taste, boy, he said. This caused some to look at him with shame and disgust. My second question, what is your favorite hobby? He asked with his innocent tone again. Motohama. Spying on the kendo club girls when they are changing, he said again with his expressionless tone. And spreading rumors that the person he spies on is Issei Haidu, he finished saying with that expressionless tone. Ingvild couldn't believe that Sublimino was a real hypnotist, but Albedo was recording everything with Ingvild's cell phone. You could see an amused smile on his face. Albedo. To be or not to be, that's the question, he said with a dramatic tone, before seeing a particular button. In this case it's taking a leap of faith, he said with a smile. While pressing the transmit button the video started to be uploaded to YouTube. In the occult club, you can see Ria's Gremory's entourage with Ravel Phoenix and Irina Shidu, who were talking about what was going to happen from now on, and then you can see Dai Haidu checking some things on his cell phone, while Gasper was watching YouTube videos. But at that moment the Dampire received a notification that something was being broadcast live from Ingvild Leviathan's channel, which raised an eyebrow. Gasper. Guys, apparently Ingvild Senpai is broadcasting live, he said calmly, to which he attracted the attention of those present. Dai. Wait, what are you talking about? He said with curiosity, so he quickly entered the YouTube application and searched for Ingvild's channel. The video had a strange title for those present, but it caught the attention of Dai, who for an instant felt a chill. The great Sublimino revealing the truth of a liar. This caught the attention of those present. When watching the broadcast that was in the shopping center caught the attention of everyone. The video showed a short man dressed as a hypnotist tamer to Motohama, where many saw that it was not a trick. But at that moment they see how Motohama reveals that he is one of the people who spreads the rumors of Issei Haidu, that he is a pervert. They did not know what to think about such a thing. But the live chat was something else, they kept stopping the messages. I can't believe he's like that. What kind of school allows a person like him to attend? Sublimino-san, you're great at revealing the secrets of scum like him. And those were some of the comments that were going up for every second that passed, but Dai was nervous that Motohama would open his mouth more than necessary, so he only had to watch the live with look of terror. Damn it. He shouted in his mind with helplessness of just seeing how the truth was going to be revealed, and oh boy, Crom Cruich was only laughing in the mind skip of Dai Haidu. Crom Cruich. Apparently they are going to start suspecting your friend and not forgetting you too, ahahaha, take this motherfucker, you're so dead. He said in the mind of the false hero. Dai. There is nothing funny. He thought with frustration. Crom Cruich. For you, because for me I'm enjoying it like you can't imagine. He thought mockingly, to which Dai just clicked his tongue in disgust, so he decided to end the conversation with his partner. Dai. It's easy to say that that guy is a charlatan, just by saying that it will be easy to have everyone apologize to me, and now the problem will be Ingvald. He thought with frustration. All the girls who had feelings for Motohama started looking him with disgust, others like Mitsuda were nervous of what was happening, he must shut him up somehow and soon. On the outskirts of Kuo. The 2008 Dodge Challenger RT, red with 2 black lines, leaves Kuo at a high speed. The person who was driving the car is none other than Issei Haidu. There was a great reason to use that car, that was due to go even a specific place. No one noticed that he missed Kuo Academy very often just to go out and drive. At that he stops abruptly when he reaches the barrier that surrounded Kuo. Only a supernatural being or magician could notice that barrier. The red dragon only watched the road for a few moments. Issei. It's not long before I can leave this place, just hope leaders that this place will be his own grave. He said coldly, as he gets out of the car. As he imagined, the barrier was modified to know if he was leaving this place. He said with anger as he felt how the factions were trying to imprison him. He tried 1,000 times not to remember scenes that broke his heart, he never gave them his heart, they stole it from him. Issei. All of you are mine, just wait, piece by piece. He said with a sinister smile. Returning with Sublimino. Albedo was just having fun transmitting the fraud that was Motohama, so he just shook his head. It seems that the cherry on the cake was missing, so that everything goes down the drain. Sublimino. This will be my last question, when you answer it, you will remember everything that happened while you were under my hypnosis. He said calmly. Have you had help from other people spreading these rumors, I asked with curiosity. Motohama. Yes, I've had help from Mitsuda and Dai Haidu. He replied in an expressionless voice, but in those moments he reacts, life in his eyes suddenly comes back. Albedo. I imagine that the reason these 2 assholes got a girlfriend was because of the ability of Dai Haidu to read breasts. He thought coldly. At least my student got one ability only, that is to see people's souls through their eyes. He thought proudly of Issei to know that his student could tell when a person was lying just by looking into their eyes. Motohama opened his eyes when the memories of everything he did came to his mind, but his face turned pale as he remembered that he answered 3 questions from that subject. Sublimino. You have seen it, this is not a trick and nothing like that. He said with a smile on his face. Motohama slowly turned to the audience where he saw Ingvald Leviathan with a look of horror on his face. Motohama. No, no. He thought angrily, not realizing that he was being recorded live. But other people, one in particular who is Dai Haidu, was shaking with anger, frustration and fear, knowing that everyone knew the truth, he had just dug his own grave. The cult club. The girl slowly gets up from the sofa and walks in the direction of where Dai Haidu is and picks up the cell phone with her left hand, and with the other she points it slowly. This person is nothing less than Aiko Haidu. Aiko. Tell me it's a lie. Said in a low voice, but Dai Haidu didn't know what to say, he couldn't think of anything. Dai. Wait sister, he's just a liar who just paid Motohama to play along. He said nervously, trying to give an excuse that everyone believes. At that moment a black glove appeared on Dai Haidu's right hand, so he tried to cover it with his other hand. Crom Cruich. Oh come on, don't lie partner, because he doesn't tell everyone in the room how you used your brother. He said with mockery, since the suffering of his carrier was going to be his favorite dessert from today on. And if you better tell her that you only did it out of jealousy, or that you is only interested in each of your so-called fiancés for their body. He said, laughing his ass off inside the gear. Dai. She said softly, as tears started coming out of her eyes. Tell me this is a lie. She said, worse. Dai Haidu couldn't say anything, she could only look away. Each of the people present slowly covered their mouths, as they watched Dai Haidu, without being able to believe what was happening in front of them. Each of the girls who are Dai Haidu's lovers did not know how to look into his eyes. Slowly they each looked at each other until a look of disgust was drawn on their face. One by one they left in different directions. But when Dai Haidu was about to leave, he was held by his shoulder by Yudo Kiba, who looked at him with a glare. Next to him was Gaspar Vladi and his sister Aiko Haidu. Before Dai could say anything, he felt a blow on his balls. He slowly raised his face, only to see his sister Aiko with her foot extended, where he realized that the cause was his own sister. 2 days later, the leaders of each mythology that was allied with the factions were paralyzed. Anger was slowly forming on his face until he felt a particular aura which belonged to Serzich's Lucifer. He was not only angry but also ashamed for having people like Dai Haidu among his ranks. Zeus. Explain now. He said coldly, while pointing to the video that was shown in the form of a hologram. Serzich's. Wait Zeus, I can explain to you what. He could not finish speaking when he saw how Zeus slammed his hand against a table, which turned to dust from that blow. Zeus. Learn the rule of a leader, brat. He said coldly, while raising a finger. Everything happens now is your fault. He finished saying with an angry look on his face. Serzich's. I assure you, I knew nothing about this, he said with difficulty, mostly because of the embarrassment he was going through. Zeus. It happened because if it comes to it, they were able to observe the memories of the pillar of the factions to verify that everything is real and not a lie. He said, to which some looked away. I can blame them, I also fell into this game of a brat with desires to just get laid. He said bitterly. Odin. And now what are we going to do against him in the upcoming fight? He said, to which more than one opened their eyes when remembering that, to which they all did not know what to say to those words. Seraphol. We would only have to play fair in the fight, since it could be harmful for someone to find out that the fight was just a trap. She said, to which some were considering her words. Shemhazai. And I doubt that Dai Haidu at the level of his brother. He said, to which some thought what Dai Haidu's true strength was. Seraphol Leviathan and Serzich's Lucifer were with a look of coldness when remembering how Dai Haidu faced his ex-queen Ingvild Leviathan, who only smiled at him with mockery. Flashback. The video transmitted live from Ingvild Leviathan's cell phone went viral in a matter of minutes, and it seems that not only did I stop there, it was also transmitted on DeviTube, the platform of the devils. Many refused to believe what they were hearing live in person. Ingvild entered the Haidu residence with a look of tranquility, where when passing through the entrance of the room, he could see Dai Haidu with some wounds on his body, but apparently he was the only one in the Haidu residence apart from her. Ingvild. What's going on? She asked confused, but slowly she sees how Dai Haidu gets up from where he is sitting, only to walk up to be in front of her. Dai. You're the one who did this. He said coldly, as he angrily looks at the descendant of Leviathan. Ingvild. What are you talking about? I haven't done anything. She defended herself, to which Dai just laughed bitterly. Dai. You don't know, well watch what you've done. He said angrily, while showing her the video he had transmitted, to which Ingvild only looked at the video with neutral look. Ingvild. What's wrong with that? She asked with curiosity. It's just a video, what can be wrong with recording a great show? Said innocent, to which Dai only pointed her with his right hand. Dai. You slut, you don't understand that you're destroying my image. He said angrily, but at that Ingvild couldn't stand it anymore and slapped him all over his cheek. Ingvild. That was the truth. She said coldly, seeing Dai who was holding his left cheek by Ingvild's slap. You thought I wasn't going to find out that it was your brother who saved me and not you, that you only presumed me as a simple object to make Issei jealous. She said angrily, as she threw away the shopping bags that she was carrying. Dai instinctively took a step back, you could see sweat on his face. How did she find out the truth? Those were some of his questions. Ingvild. He loved me, he buried his feelings just to make me happy with a scumbag like you. She said with sadness, which slowly looked at him with anger, hatred, disappointment at herself. I defended you by thinking that he was just jealous, and I almost slapped him. I could now be with him. It's all your fault. She said, tears now coming down from her eyes. That's a lie, I saved you from that goddess. He tried to defend himself, but the look on Ingvild's face told him that she didn't believe what he was saying. Ingvild. You are already dead to me, I would have preferred to continue with my illness than to meet you cheap dragon excuse. She said coldly, then quietly left. I was upset at that moment, so a magic circle appeared in his right hand. Dai. You're going to pay slut, if I can't have you, then he won't have you. He said madly, before launching said attack. Ingvild slowly turned around. But the attack was going in her direction, because of the surprise she could not create a barrier, she closed her eyes in fear when she saw the attack. Ingvild. I'm so sorry Issei-sama. She thought sadly, while tears escaped from her eyes, watching as her life passed in front of her eyes. And that she feels the burden as something, to then see that he was in someone's arms, but what surprised him the most was that he was behind Dai Haidu, who seemed to laugh like crazy, apparently he had not noticed. Dai. At least with this I could get revenge on him. He said mockingly, watching as the smoke was dissipating by his attack. But his look changed to one of horror. How Ingvald Leviathan was not found in the rubble, to which he opened his eyes with terror, to which he quickly approached the rubble looking for Ingvald's body. While Ingvald slowly looked up of the one who saved her, she could see the green Omnitrix symbol glowing brightly. She slowly raised her face to see a semi-armored velociraptor species. With black orbs on his feet and wears a black cone-shaped helmet with a sliding protective visor. His visor is formed by his skin and part of his skull. He has 4 blue stripes on the tail. He was wearing a green shirt that covered up to his neck. Looking for someone, bro? He said with a mocking tone, while the visor of his face shrinks, revealing his face. Dai Haidu hearing those words slowly turns around in fear, only to see a kind of monster with a resemblance even dinosaur. Dai. What how? He said nervously, but even more so when he saw that Ingvald was safe from him. Issei. Don't worry, but what I don't understand yet is because you want to attack the queen of your peerage. He said coldly, to which Ingvald clung even more to the red dragon. She didn't want to move away from him, she was afraid that something would happen to him. Dai. You brainwashed her to turn her against me. He said coldly, to which the red dragon looked at him with boredom look. Issei. I'm not like you, fucker, he said sarcastically. I don't need a peerage or to lie for people to see the garbage that you are, now answer the question. He said, to which Dai took a step back in fear. Dai. That shouldn't matter to you, after all she belongs to me. He said mockingly, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix puts a look of coldness on his face. Issei. You wanted to provoke me, because you have succeeded, and so that you can see that I am good. He said coldly, as he puts Ingvald from his arms and his visor covered his face again. I'm going to take you for a ride. He said, before taking Dai from the back of his shirt at an incredible speed and leaving the Haidu residence at full speed. Ingvald couldn't believe what was happening. Issei Haidu had saved her again. She felt like a useless being unable to defend herself. Tears of frustration were escaping from her eyes. But Issei Haidu, he was running all over Kuo while dragging Dai. He didn't care if anyone saw him, he just wanted to freaking destroy him to the point of death. When he saw a concrete wall he didn't think twice and used Dai's head to wipe the floor with it. Issei. The popular kid always hits the little one that no one wants. He said angrily, as his speed increased even more. But I don't accept that ending. I'll let those in your class know that they are just stones in my road. He said with a mocking tone. After crushing his head against the walls, he took it one more time and went straight to the abandoned church where he threw him like an old rag inside the church. Dai. Hahaha, let me tell you that I have had her body in my hands. He said mockingly, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix slowly brought his hand to the chest, where the symbol of the Omnitrix was located. Slowly a glow began to surround him, changing his shape to that of a humanoid dinosaur about 3.5 meters tall, with hard brown skin on its outer side and beige on its inner side. Humongosaurus. He roared, revealing the new appearance of the red dragon, and that he feels like someone was going in his direction. When he sees well, he could see his brother with his hand outstretched where he tried to punch him in the stomach. Brother, wait, everything was a lie, I've never touched her. He said nervously, seeing that his blow did not do any harm to the red dragon. Issei. I also regret one thing, he said coldly, as he caught up with his brother. And that is that you will never be the same. He said angrily. He roared with all his anger, to then start punching, kicking Dai. With his tail he took him by the neck where Dai Haidu looked like a punching bag. Without waiting he started hitting him. Every blow he gave him was stronger, and it seemed that he was not going to stop. After getting bored, he threw him against one of the walls of the abandoned church with such force that it went through said wall. The red dragon for a few moments looked the Omnitrix where a smile appeared on his face. Issei. I'm going to show you a power which you will never have. He said coldly, seeing his brother trying to get up from the ground. But I'm going to pay a great cost, but as long as I can fucking see you suffer I'll give myself even to death. He said with a smile, before moving the Omnitrix dial on his chest. Ultimate Humongosaurus. He said, while letting himself see his new appearance, where Dai saw that transformation with fear. Dai. Wait brother, please stop, we are brothers, you wouldn't do this to me. He said desperately. Slowly Ultimate Humongosaurus approached Dai. Issei. You're right, I wouldn't do this to my brother. He said coldly, to which Dai sighed with relief. But I don't have any brother, haha. He said with a smile, to which Dai opened his eyes in despair. Before Dai could escape, he was held by his foot, where he could see the hand of Ultimate Humongosaurus. Dai. Help me lizard, can't you see I'm going to die? Dai trying to talk to Kromkruich mentally. Kromkruich. This is the answering machine, please leave your message. He couldn't finish speaking when he heard Dai's words. "Fuck you," he said angrily when he saw that Krom Kruich was not going to help him. "Issei. You don't know how I'm going to enjoy this," he said with a smile on his face. He began to hit him to the ground, and that ultimate Humongosaurus turns to a specific direction, where Surzich's Lucifer and Seraphol Leviathan come out of the magic circle, along with the peerage of Sona Sitri and Ingvold Leviathan, which he glared at them. Everyone slowly observed the state Dai Haidu was in. He seemed to be about to lose consciousness, but there was one person who was not interested in Dai Haidu's state, and that person is Ingvold Leviathan. "Surzich's Issei Haidu," calling the wielder of the Omnitrix's attention. "Let go of your brother right now," he said seriously, to which ultimate Humongosaurus threw Dai Haidu at his feet, where slowly the wielder of the Omnitrix's hands transformed into missile launchers. Where he did not hesitate to shoot at those present, who quickly raised a magic circle to protect themselves from the red dragon's attacks, but these crack at an incredible speed. "Issei, you better get the hell out of this place," he said angrily, as he coldly watched the two mass. The ones who nodded their heads, where it was Surzich's who took Dai Haidu like a sack of potatoes, where they left in silence, but there was one person who quickly left the magic circle. This person is Ingvold Leviathan. This left the mass surprised, who could not believe that Ingvold was going to disobey them in such a way. She was nervous to be alone with Issei Haidu, which a green glow surrounded him to return to his human form. "Issei. I said leave," he said coldly, to which Ingvold only looked down sadly. "Ingvold. Please let me talk to you," she said desperately, but the wielder of the Omnitrix did not pay attention to her words, to which he began to leave in silence, leaving Ingvold with a word in her mouth. "Issei. I have no time to waste with you," he said coldly, as the red dragon kept walking away from Ingvold. "Greg. Partner, I'm not the one to get into romantic trouble, but just listen to what she wanted to say," he told him. "Issei. No," she said it herself, "that I'm just a liar," he told Dreg in his thought. "Greg. I understand." Ingvold before she could say anything, the sound of an engine is heard, to which she slowly turned where said sound is coming from, only to see a 2008 Dodge Challenger RT, red with two black lines, which passed by him, but he could see in that small moment that there was no one driving that car, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix only looked at her with a serious look. The Dodge Challenger stopped next to the wielder of the Omnitrix, where he turned on the lights for a moment. The wielder of the Omnitrix slowly walked to the driver's door, where he opened it with a look of tranquility. When getting into the car he put his hands on the steering wheel, where Issei for a moment dropped his head in the center of the steering wheel, where the car horn was located. Ingvold had to cover her ears when she heard the car horn. The wielder of the Omnitrix slowly raised his face, where he could see through the rear-view mirror Ingvold who had her eyes down. "Issei. Damn it," he said coldly, before moving the gearshift lever. Ingvold could only sadly see Issei inside his car, slowly under his head as he looks at the ground. But at that she hears the sound of the car. Out of simple curiosity she looks up to see the car was in reverse, until it stopped still next to her. The door of the co-pilot opened in front of her. She was incredulous to see that the red dragon did not pay much attention to her. She only looked forward with a look of few friends, and said with a curt tone. "Issei. What are you waiting for?" I asked with a curt tone. "I don't have all day, come up at once or stay there all day," he said, to which Ingvold showed a small smile and got into the car. The co-pilot's door closed. Issei simply pointed to a part of his seat where the seatbelt was located, to which she understood immediately and prepared to put on the seatbelt. The great silence of the car could be appreciated. The only thing Ingvold could do was to see in front of her, more specifically the road where the red dragon was driving, but in that she sees that the red dragon passes straight through a street that leads directly to the Haidu residence. She did not understand why the red dragon did it. "Ingvold. Ice you already passed by." She couldn't finish talking. "Issei. Not that you wanted to talk, and as far as I can imagine we won't have time if we go to that cursed mansion," he said coldly, to which Ingvold only nodded her head. Slowly Ingvold could appreciate a kind of milkshake establishment where the red dragon under the car speed and slowly parked his car. She did not understand why he chose this place. Issei. In that she sees how the wielder of the Omnitrix turns off the car engine, just opens the door and gets out of the car with a look of total boredom. Ingvold instinctively turns to see where the wielder of the Omnitrix went. If she was nervous, with fear opens the car door and starts walking in the direction of where the wielder of the Omnitrix went. At least he wasn't that far away from her, so scared she took Issei by the sweater. At this the wielder of the Omnitrix felt that someone pulled him by his clothes, only to turn to see Ingvold, who seemed to be nervous, but the wielder of the Omnitrix decided not to pay much attention to her. Skip time. Ingvold was with a bored look on her face, while she watched Issei drinking from his milkshake with a look of disinterest. "Issei. You'd better take it," he said with boredom, to which Ingvold looked at him with a sad look on her face. "Ingvold. I want to make amends for my mistakes and act as before. She said sadly, but the red dragon only looked at her for a few seconds. Issei. No thanks. She said coldly. Ingvild opened her eyes in shock at those words. After all, I never had anything special with you, and I don't want to take the risk that you betray me. He said coldly. Ingvild. But at least give me a chance. Didn't know that he was lying. She said sadly, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix just took a sip of his milkshake. Issei. Yes, you have changed. He said without much importance. But tell me what would have happened if Albedo had not shown you the truth. He said with mockery, to which Ingvild only lowered her head sadly. That's what I thought, you would still be his beloved fangirl, where you would still say that I'm just jealous that you're with my brother. He said coldly. Ingvild was silent at those words, tears began to come out of her eyes, which she lowered her head in shame. Issei. That love I felt for you is already gone. If you are looking for the love I felt for you is already gone, babe, wake up to reality. He said calmly. Ingvild tried to look away, but she couldn't do it. Ingvild tried to let go, but when she felt that warmth surrounding the red dragon she gave up. She didn't want to accept the red dragon's words. Issei. It may be that I am the enemy of the factions, but there is one thing you should be aware of. He said with a small smile. Record this in your head, I am your biggest enemy now. Ingvild. Forgive me for not realizing. She said sadly. I know I have no forgiveness, please don't leave me alone. She said sadly. Issei. I can't fulfill that. He said. Sorry to break your illusions of not being with you, but I loved you too much before, but not anymore. Ingvild. In that case, take me with you, I don't care about anybody, I want to be with you. She said sadly, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix opened his eyes with surprise. If necessary, that use the mummy to make your servant so as not to take me away from you. She said, afraid to get away from Issei. Issei. Sorry, but. He could not finish speaking, seeing that Ingvild interrupted him. Ingvild. I can be useful to you, don't forget that my sacred gear is Narid Kiri, they can use me against all dragons. She told the wielder of the Omnitrix that at least he will think about it and that she can go with him. Issei slowly got up from where he was sitting. Ingvild for no moment let go of the wielder of the Omnitrix's hand. Slowly the Omnitrix turned a red color. The wielder of the Omnitrix only looked at his right hand with a sigh of what was about to happen. Ingvild took Issei by the wrist, where he slowly activated it and moved the dial to select the alien he was looking for without any doubt, while Issei just watched with curiosity as Ingvild moved his hand slowly until he found the alien he was looking for specifically. He pressed the Omnitrix symbol where the red dragon changed in front of his nose. Ingvild slowly touched a part of that alien's chest, where he knew the corrodium was located. Issei for a moment took a step back. Ingvild realized it. Ingvild. Please Ice, don't be afraid. She tried to calm Issei, to which the mummy slowly looked the Leviathan descendant in the eyes. You can do it, just let me be with you, as your servant that shall be from the start. She said with smile. Slowly the bandages on Issei's chest began to move, where Ingvild approached voluntarily bleeding. From one moment to another a great purple glow was observed. The next morning. It is observed as the 2008 Dodge Challenger RT slowly stopped in front of the Haidu mansion, where at the entrance was Graphia Lucifuge next to Seraphol Leviathan, both with a worried look on their face. When they saw the car stop in front of the garage they walked straight to the car, only to see Issei Haidu get out of the car with a look of coldness on his face, but Seraphol could see in the passenger seat Ingvild sitting with a look of tranquility on her face. The wielder of the Omnitrix only prepared to open the co-pilot's door, letting Ingvild see with that look of tranquility that puzzled Seraphol and Graphia. They quickly recovered from the shock. Seraphol. Ingvild-chan, where have you been? She scolded her about what happened last night when she remembered how Ingvild left the magic circle to be alone with Issei, but this one she didn't pay much attention to. Ingvild. I'm sorry Seraphol-sama, but I wanted to try to calm down I-sama I'm sorry, which caught the current Mao Leviathan off guard. And that they see how Issei passed by them without greeting, but before Seraphol could say anything, she saw how Ingvild left with a word in her mouth when she saw her reach Issei. As Issei Haidu was entering the residence, he could hear the sound of a vase crashing against a wall, where the red dragon raised an eyebrow and approached in silence. Where he could see Ria's Gremory being held by his parents, Miki Haidu was hugging Asia Argento, more specifically she was comforting her. In another part Griselda Quarta was holding Zenobia. Toji Shidu was hugging his daughter Irina, who was crying her eyes out. Deku was holding Arthur Pendragon so that he wouldn't try to kill Dai Haidu. Kuroka Hellcat was angrily looking Dai Haidu. The aforementioned was hugging his sister. Riser Phoenix is literally burning up, while his parents were comforting his sister Ravel. Surziches. You know the problems that caused your lies Dai Haidu. He said to the mentioned, who has a black eye. But this one didn't say anything, he just put a look of annoyance on his face as he was scolded by the Mao Lucifer, as if it were a small child. Dai. For them to complain, they are just the achievements of a useless. He said furiously, not noticing that his brother was in the same room as him. Griselda. The same person who is the real hero and not a little boy with delusions of grandeur. She said sarcastically, to which Dai turned to her with a murderous look. Dai. You'd better shut up, don't forget that I'm the. He could not finish speaking, being interrupted by Surziches. Surziches? Rather you were the pillar of the factions. He said coldly, that with his eyes open to Dai Haidu. Dai. Wait, you can't do this. He said in disbelief, as something that rightfully belongs to him was being taken from him. Surziches? Well, I already did it. He said with mockery, to which Dai gritted his teeth for listening to those words. Besides, your titles as a high-class devil will be revoked, and you will be a low-class devil again, where your engagements with each of your fiancés will be cancelled. He told him without accepting any complaint from Dai Haidu. Dai. You can't do this to me, you need me to beat Albedo. He said arrogantly. Well, they don't need you, because we always lose, the only one who can deal with it is Isama. She said angrily, to which everyone slowly turned around, only to see Ingvild giving a cold look to her ex-king. Apparently she was not alone, next to her was Issei Haidu who gave each present a mocking look, which annoyed some, others felt embarrassed. Dai. Stay away from her, you are my queen and your place is next to me. He said angrily, but Ingvild slowly walked up to face him, no one could believe that she had paid attention to him. Dai smiled arrogantly, but some saw in slow motion how Ingvild lifted her foot and directed a kick to Dai in his balls. Dai opened his eyes, as tears came out of his eyes, he could not believe that Ingvild kicked him, in rage, acted the punishment of the piece on Ingvild, but he realized that nothing was happening. Ingvild. Consider this my resignation letter. She said coldly. As your queen and thank you Mao Lucifer for breaking my engagement with this scum. She said, before turning around she directed a cold look at Dai. And Dai Haidu, from now on I am Lady Leviathan for you. She said, before leaving the room. As she was leaving, a piece flew straight to Dai Haidu's head, where a bump appeared on his head. Ingvild. I'll give you back your piece, she said, as she whips the door behind her. Dai. Why you, without me those old devils are going to use you as a breeding stock. He said with mockery, to which the girls who were from the side of the demons, opened their eyes in terror. Issei. I doubt it bro. He said sarcastically, Dai seeing his brother in front of him, he did not know how to react now she is under the protection of the Red Dragon Emperor. He said with mockery, which surprised those present to hear those words. Dai. Wait, you can't steal her from me. He said with fear, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix just punched Dai on the face. Issei. Ah, when your gaze changes from hope to despair it's a real pleasure for me. He said with a look empty of emotions. Enjoy your new life little brother. He said calmly, before giving him another punch that sent him flying, literally. End of flashback. Albedo had a look of boredom while watching the Omnitrix on Issei's wrist, he just shakes his head at the silly thing he did for wanting to defend Ingvild Leviathan. Albedo. The Omnitrix is suspended because of you, apparently it needs an update because of the stupid thing you did. He said angrily, while walking back and forth. I told you that the ultimate mode without the two catalysts was a double-edged sword, at least you didn't get stuck in that way until the Omnitrix is updated. He said angrily. Issei. I know, but after that the Omnitrix worked fine when I transformed into the mummy. He said, to which he called Albedo's attention. Albedo. Apparently you will be able to continue using the aliens, but the best thing will be to let it finish updating itself. He warned his student, who nodded his head. Watch this idiot not to do something stupid again. He said to a silver-haired girl, who only nodded her head. Issei. Apparently you don't trust me much, he said sarcastically, but he only looked at him with sigh. Albedo. I trust you, but I know you well enough to know that when you come up with an idea you carry it out regardless of the consequences. He said seriously, to which the white-haired girl nodded her head. In that case Lucifer girl watch him not to do something stupid. He said, and then left the room. Valerie Lucifer just remained silent while watching Issei Haidu, who was with a bored look on his face. He slowly gets up from his seat and walks to his bed, wherever he is he drops into it. Valerie. Master, apparently the faction leaders are being very secretive about your fight with your brother. She said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix raises an eyebrow and turns to look at Valerie. According to Artemis they are planning to get you loose. She said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix let out a laugh at those words. Issei. Plain dirty if they are desperate for me to help them. He said with mockery, to which Valerie looked at her master for a few moments, before approaching him. Valerie. Also that they tried to put conditions on you, mostly to have a miserable chance of wanting to beat you. She said coldly. They are idiots to think that they could beat you. She said with mockery, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix laughed between his teeth. Issei. I already want to see the faces of your friends seeing your new personality. he said with mockery. Slowly Valerie sat down next to Issei. If I ordered to kill any of them, will you do that? He said with curiosity. Valerie. Of course Sama, after all I am one of his most faithful servants. She said with a smile. Issei just sat down on the edge of his bed and I extended his hand to Valerie's cheek where he started fondling her. Valerie Lucifer is a young and thin woman. She has a normal height. She has long, straight white hair, which becomes slightly wavy at the tips. She also has a ponytail up and ties the hair that covers her forehead. Her hair seems to have adapted to her. This is noticeable with the hair on her forehead that is left pointing up, even when it is not tied up. She has big blue eyes and a curvy body, and she also has big breasts. In the kitchen you can see Tsubaki Shinra who supervises Ryakusaka and Momo Hanakai, who are preparing some breakfast. They were mainly helping the entourage of Ria's Gremory, Irina Shido and Ravel Phoenix. Tsubaki. Things have become complicated between the factions, she said heavily, remembering the mood of Ria's entourage. Ria. Yes, but especially tomorrow what kind of consequences will there be in the academy? She said, remembering that there was still more to come. Momo. Don't remind me, it will be a big headache. She said coldly, to which more than one agreed with those words. At that the door is opened by none other than Asia Argento. Both Tsubaki, Ria and Momo approach her to try to desist from letting them prepare breakfast, more specifically Ria and Momo. Slowly from one of the ventilation tubes it could be observed as a kind of purple haze came out of it, which was positioned above the four girls. Asia. Girls, let me take care of preparing breakfast. She said with a lowered gaze, to which the girls of the Citri entourage were going to protest. The door was slowly closing, not knowing what was about to happen or rather what was happening in the kitchen. Finally the door slammed shut without anyone noticing. In the hall of the Haidu residence. All of Dai Haidu's ex-lovers except Ingvild Leviathan had a looks full of sadness on their faces, while the mentioned was with a look full of anger when remembering the kick Ingvild Leviathan gave him. Prom Cruich. What's up partner? How is the offspring? He asked mockingly, only gaining a look of annoyance from Dai Haidu. Oh, that's why you're not going to have a lover anymore. Wait a minute, you don't have a lover anymore. Haha man this is awesome. Riaz. Haidu, you have to hand out pamphlets tonight. She mentioned to him coldly as she sat down to breakfast. Dai gritted his teeth as he remembered that he belonged to the Gremory entourage again. Dai didn't reply, he just got up from the table with an angry look. A job of that level was not for him. There was no way to do such a shameful job again. He was a high-class devil. Kaneko. Disgusting senpai. She said with an expressionless tone. Baroka just gave him a look to stay away from me. Everyone in the room was in a mess, all in front of Sona Citri and her entourage. Apparently the only one who got out of the mess was Saji Genshiro for being a close friend of Dai Haidu. Sona. Apparently everything is in chaos. She thought, seeing her friend Riaz avoid talking about Dai Haidu. Riaz. Sona, it's true that you are going to leave from the DXD group. She said curiously. It's about what happened with Lord Citri. She said with an intrigued look. Before she could have another thought, she could see Tsubaki Shinra, along with Momo Hanakai and Ryakusaka bringing breakfast, along with Argento Asia, who greatly surprised Sona by the look she had on her face. Sona. Is everything okay? She asked with curiosity, to which she replies as his queen. Tsubaki. Yes Sona, everything is in perfect condition. She told her with her serious countenance, but Sona did not pay attention that a look of annoyance appeared on Tsubaki's face for a few moments. Slowly Momo Hanakai as Ryakusaka started serving breakfast, but they served it reluctantly, but when it was their turn to serve her breakfast between them, they did it in a friendly way. Even with Asia Argento, they served her breakfast willingly. This was seen by Albedo, who seemed confused by the attitude of the four girls. Then he was going to investigate what was going on. He had more important things to do. Albedo. The next phase of my plan is ready, but as one of the main authors it is my duty to witness such a masterpiece. He thought proudly as he followed straight to the door. In the underworld. The leaders of the factions were in great trouble because of what happened with Dai Haidu. This made the image of the alliance look publicly weak. People felt insecure about them. Surziches. It only remains for us to trust him. He said seriously, to which many could not believe the words that came from the lips of the Mao Lucifer. Ajuka. So it only remains to train Dai Haidu to face his brother. He said, some disagreed, but they had no other. Artemis looked at everything with an admiring coldness on her face. On the other hand, Athena just shook her head that the brother of the ancient pillar of the factions was just one lie among many. Surziches. There is only one way he can defeat his brother, and that is for Dai Haidu to absorb the king piece. He said seriously, to which he caught everyone off guard. Artemisa did not expect such news, but slowly a smile was drawn on her face, to which she quickly had to put on a cold countenance and play along that she did not agree. Artemisa. Are you sure? he said with disbelief and anger, to which he attracted the attention of those present. It also gonna gave him the opportunity to stab us in the back, she said with anger, to which many agreed with Artemis's words. Ajuka. That's why we will put a seal to deactivate the piece in case any problems happen, he said seriously, to which many were unsure by those words. While everyone was contributing ways to make the fight go in their favor, someone seemed to fight with their own thoughts. This person was none other than Athena. Athena. Everything will be fine, this is against him, she thought with some difficulty. Saving people at the cost of a person's freedom, she thought sadly, but quickly shook her head at what happened. Artemis was reading the information about the abilities or weapons that Dai Haidu had, but there was something that greatly worried her, as it could be a big problem for her master. This familiar was none other than the legendary ship that Surtur II gave him as a gift due to his fight for the underworld and Surzich's Lucifer. If his master should not be trusted, since the family member had the ability to grow, he will grow and evolve in different ways, using the aura and imagination of his master as a source. Artemis. This is not going to stop him, it's just a setback and nothing more, she thought coldly, as she kept checking the information. Athena. With this we will be able to defeat him, she thought with a smile, thinking that Issei Haidu was already defeated. Among the documents was also the one who hired Dai Haidu as his contract devil. This person was none other than Lefay Pendragon. Artemis. Apparently we are going to need her, as Elizabeth wanted to have the Sekiryuutei as her contract dragon, she thought with some mockery, since that informant was not weak at all. In the Grozauber organization, there was Mephistopheles observing several applications to hire demons. Elsewhere there was a girl with a look of coldness on her face while listening to news about Lavinia Renai, who was still in a coma, which upset her greatly. I'm already sick of Lavinia this or Lavinia that because I didn't finish killing her, she thought coldly, thinking about his possible ally. She slowly took out some leaves from her clothes, of which they sought her services as a mage, but she refused them. She was not interested in arrogant demons, she had one person in mind. Apparently things are moving between the factions, she thought as she lay down on a tree. She is a girl of medium height with long orange hair which reaches to her shoulders. She has rounded eyes of a reddish hue and a pointed but not very pronounced chin. Things will get red hot and I want to watch the world burn too, she thought with a defiant smile on her face. She slowly closed her eyes, not knowing that she was being watched by Mephistopheles, who seemed confused by the attitude of the girl, who seemed not to be interested in Lavinia Renai's health, but he was not surprised, since Hakiz Kusarup was a girl who considered Lavinia Renai as someone annoying. They were not friends or rivals, just simple companions of the same organization. Mephisto. Please send for Kusarup to my office, tell her it's something urgent, he said, while a magic circle was in her ear. I'm Skip. Hakiz Kusarup is seen sitting in front of Mephistopheles, who was observing one of the members of the organization in which he is director. Mephisto. It's been a while since you've been in my office, Miss Kusarup, he told her, to which she looked at him with a cold look. Hakiz. Tell me the truth why I'm here, he said coldly, to which Mephisto just sighed heavily at the girl's attitude. Mephisto. It's about the rejecting requests to be hired by various demons, he said, to which Hakiz snorted with annoyance. Hakiz. If there is no one to get my attention, besides the one who should send the request is me and not them, she said with annoyance, to which Mephisto just shook his head. Mephisto. In itself, many of them are pressuring me that I accepted a proposal, he said, but in that a magic circle without any emblem appears in Hakiz's hands. Without waiting SHR look for something suspicious in the letter, seeing that there was nothing suspicious, he opened it before the gaze of Mephistopheles, who seemed interested to see Hakiz so concentrated when reading the letter. Hakiz. Apparently you won't have to worry about those arrogant people anymore, I've already received a reply from the person I wish to hire me, he said with a smile on his face. Mephisto. And may I ask who is this person? He asked curiously. Hakiz. I want it to be a surprise, I have to arrange some things to leave as soon as possible, she said with a smile. Without waiting for Mephisto to tell him that she can leave, she left Mephisto's office as if nothing had happened. The person who had sent her the letter was none other than Artemis, where she was going to meet with Gondel, Elizabeth, to discuss her contract with Issei. On the outskirts of Kuo, Elizabeth can be observed with an impatient look while sitting on the trunk of the 2008 Dodge Challenger RT. Issei Haidu was with a serious look on his face, on his shoulder was Albedo. The magic circle was forming in front of Issei, where it could be observed as he left this Hakiz Kusarup with a smile on her face. Hakiz. Apparently they need my help, she said with a small mocking tone. This made Elizabeth angry, but before she could say anything, the wielder of the Omnitrix raised his hand to stop Elizabeth. Issei. You're not wrong, apparently you told Elizabeth that you wanted my services to be your contract dragon, he said with a smile. Hakiz. And you are absolutely right, but you should know that I have certain conditions to accept. She said, to which the red dragon was interested by those words. Issei. And what is that price? He asked with interest, to which Hakas took a hand to his chin. Hakas. I need you to promise me that you are going to finish killing Lavinia Rinai. She said coldly, which Issei was surprised by that condition. Issei. Wow, I thought you were going to ask me for money, jewelry or power. He said surprised. But to ask me to kill one of your classmates, I never thought you were that kind of girl. He said incredulously. If that's your condition, consider it done. He finished speaking, which Hakas was surprised with the ease that the wielder of the Omnitrix said those words. Hakas. I thought you were going to refuse. She said with some sarcasm, to which Issei simply shook his head. Albedo. Apparently you will be too useful, for that you need to expand your knowledge to new limits. He said earnestly, while extending the book to Hakas. Albedo. This book contains great spells that even you could not imagine. He said seriously. Hakas calmly took the book, where when he opened it he could see several spells written in the book. Hakas. These spells. She couldn't believe what she was reading, so she looked up to see Issei. How can I refuse this, but don't forget that Lavinia Rinai must die. She said, which the wielder of the Omnitrix nodded his head. Next day, occult club. Issei Haidu had a look of boredom, mainly to deal with an important matter. Opposite Issei Haidu was Surzich's Lucifer, accompanied by Seraphol Leviathan and Ajuka Beelzebub. Surzich's. Look Haidu, we all agree with you, fight against your brother. He said calmly, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix in his mind shook his head. Issei. I knew they were going to accept, after all they depend on this fight to save innocent people. He said the last thing in quotes. Surzich's. This fight will take place within 21 days. He said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix was confused by such information. According to what Artemisa reported, it would be maximum in 1 week, but because they were giving him almost triple the time, unless the mass try to put their brother on their level in that time, they were desperate. Issei. Wow, well, where is this fight gonna be? He said curiously. Surzich's. In the underworld, mainly in Ajuka Stadium. He said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix knew they wanted to make it big, and he wasn't wrong. Issei. Wow. He said with surprise, or that's what the mass thought. So the replica of the arena will be a mystery to me, brother, as well as to me. He said innocently. Seraphol. That's right. She said, but for a few seconds Issei looked away. Issei. So they are not going to stop giving advantages to my brother. He thought coldly. On the other hand, I want to discuss with you the matter that Ingvild is no longer part of the devil faction. He said, to which no one was affected. Surzich's. I'm sorry Haidu, but she's not going to be able to. He said, to which the red dragon looked at him annoyed. She is extremely important for the underworld. He said, but at that he heard a laugh coming from the red dragon. Issei. Seriously? He said incredulously. Or maybe it's because of the support of the old Satan faction as of the new Satan Leviathan faction. He said with mockery. The leaders were surprised by the information that Issei had. But I think she is considered as a potential candidate for the new Satans. He said with mockery. The three mass didn't know what to say to Issei Haidu's statement, so they didn't say anything. Implying that he was right. Issei. I'm sorry devils. I apologize, this confused those present. But she is now under my protection, and I doubt you want to get into this, where it is obvious that you are going to lose. He said seriously, letting out his power. Ajuka. Is that a threat? He said seriously, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix simply shook his head. Issei. Nope, it's a warning. He said with a smile on his face. Besides, it would be interesting to fight with two super devil. He said with a grin, which shocked both Ajuka and Surzich's. Don't look surprised, Hades informed me everything about you, and I just had to join the dots. He said mockingly. Seraphol. And that tells us that you are not using Ingvild-chan. Said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix only smiled because of the stupidity that the Mau Leviathan was saying. Issei. I'm not using her, I can assure you that, I'm not like you. He said, to which Seraphol didn't know how to respond to those words. Surzich's. I'm sorry, but Ingvild will have to go with us to the underworld. He said seriously, but the wielder of the Omnitrix only raised his sleeve, where the Omnitrix was clearly visible by those present. Issei. Omnitrix self-destruct in 30 seconds. Command code. 000. Destruction. 0. At those words the mass opened their eyes with surprise to see the Omnitrix change the symbol to a strange one, and they didn't have to be geniuses to know what those words mean. Omnitrix. Code accepted. Said a robotic voice that was the AI, artificial intelligence, of the Omnitrix. Countdown for the Omnitrix in 30 seconds. Said, before starting a countdown. Issei. I can get out of here unharmed, but what would happen to the people around? He pointed to Surzich's and then to Seraphol. could bear the death of so many innocent people. He said with mockery, to which those present gritted their teeth as they were in checkmate. Sekiryuutei needed Ingvold Leviathan to be able to get the maximum power out of Daihaidou, but when he got caught up in this, he didn't know what to do, so he just looked away. Sekiryuutei. Well, Ingvold is under your protection now. He said with frustration, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix just drew a smile on his face. Issei. Abort self-destruct code 10. He said seriously, to which the Omnitrix flashed for a few seconds. Omnitrix. Self-destruction disabled. He said, to then see the Omnitrix return to the ruthless Ein. Greg. You are crazy partner, that explosion would have only sent the four of you flying, hahaha. He said, which only smiled. Issei. I knew it, but they didn't, so playing a joke on them is the daily bread. He thought mockingly, to which Dreg only laughed. Serafol. What kind of monster are you, willing to kill us? She said in disbelief of not being able to recognize the Issei she was seeing. Issei. The monster you are talking about, you created it yourself. He said coldly and with venom in every word he said. So don't come to me talking about reasons why I should help you. He said coldly. Sekiryuutei. In that case we retire. He said, to which the red dragon only turned slowly. When he stopped feeling the presence of those present, he turned to see a magic circle that was hidden under the table. Issei. You see Ingvold, they don't care about your happiness. He said coldly, and then quickly left the old building. When he was leaving, he could see how some people were looking at him, but the red dragon did not pay attention to them from the look of guilt that his viewers had. For him that was wasting time. Apparently when the truth came out, the chaos did not wait. The couple of Mitsuda and Motohama ended up with them the next day or so, the rumors say. Apparently Mitsuda was taken out of school to send him still boarding school out of the country. With Motohama he was humiliated in the worst way. Apparently he was dating another girl. Girls like Kaori Murayama and Yui Katis will not be able to compete in tournaments that have to do with kendo again. He couldn't believe that girls like them will use drugs to be able to excel. Others like Aika Kiryu, her image was stained by her when an image of her stealing men's clothes was found. The video from the security cameras was filtered all over the school. He was not at school all the time. He was always looking for an opportunity to escape, but no one even noticed until now. Other girls who live in the Haidu residence like Ria's Gremory were messed up. Sometimes they didn't eat or went with their clothes messed up because of all the dry tear on their clothes. But girls like Zenobia Quarta or Kuroka, they tried to talk to him alone, but he always avoided them as if they were a germ. Ravel Phoenix had become more distant with people. Her attitude was that of a girl who asked to be left alone. LaFay Pendragon, the girl, was in a mess of tears. She had not returned to classes. The last thing she had known was that she was returning home. Irina Shidu, if it caused her sadness in how she ended up, her wings turned black when she tried to kill Daihaidou, she only narrowly missed. He was surprised that Asia Argento's attitude hadn't changed, but for a few moments he could tell that the girl was cold to her two friends, Irina Shidu and Zenobia Quarta. Apparently she couldn't stand being near them. The student council was appointed by useless and incompetent, where it was decided that all the members left their post. There was protest from some like Saji Genshiro, but it caused him amusement as he was beaten by two girls in particular, who were Momo Hanakai and Tsubaki Shinra. Luke Gare was disappointed in himself to support a person like Daihaidou and see him as a warrior to follow. Benny Orca shot all her stuff from the Op-Eye Dragon show, of which the protagonist is Daihaidou. Apparently she was not the only one. Others like Yasaka's daughter, the little Kunu, had not stopped crying to know that who she saw as her father was another garbage of society. Serafol Leviathan along with Yasaka could not believe what they saw. Upon learning the cruel truth, they lost all interest in Dai. It made him laugh how they literally sent him flying. Others like Venelana Gremory was disgusted with the person who at that time was her daughter's lover, so she had to be stopped by her husband from not wanting to castrate Dai, but it is no longer necessary, after all that Ingvold did it and without anesthesia. The alliance of the factions now depended on a very thin thread, just one more attack, and all the peace was going to go down the drain. Who would be able to provoke that problem, since there was a protest of people asking for the exile of his brother. Finally his sister was being investigated if yes she was not an accomplice of her brother, but in the end it turned out that she had nothing to do, but people didn't trust her much because she was Daihaidou's sister. Finally he came to a blind spot of the academy where he did not hesitate to leave the school if he did not want to be next to hypocrites. On leaving he could see several people gathering at the entrance of the academy, where he left while whistling. After all, he did nothing wrong. I observe out of curiosity the Omnitrix, where he could see that it was being recalibrated. It seems that the consequence of using the incomplete ultimate mode caused great damage to the Omnitrix that needed to be restarted and updated. Albedo warned him, but the adrenaline for fighting with someone was greater if he needed to get the king piece. At the moment he could not count on the Omnitrix. Apparently the Grasshopper organization was in serious trouble because Sekiryuutei was part of that organization, but apparently that problem could be solved, although the cost of solving that problem was too drastic since Aika was one of Daihaido's women. The only way was that Sekiryuutei was fired. This made that Grasshopper was not frowned upon, or that's what Hakas Kusarab says, who was laughing at the fate of one of Lavinia Rinai's friends. Meanwhile, Albedo and Sublimino were sitting on top of a sign that had a view of the whole Kuo, where it could be seen that Albedo is eating potatoes, while Sublimino was with a beer in hand. "Sublimino, you went too far in exposing those girls," he said with an innocent tone. "Who would say that the great Albedo cares about people?" he said with mockery. "Albedo, I'm not the same as before. I did it especially so that no one has to go through what Issei went through," he said calmly before putting a potato in his mouth. "We still need to know how far he has come, but I'll just say that this copy of the Omnitrix will be able to compete against the original with the right carrier," he said calmly. "Sublimino, and why even look for a successor?" I asked with curiosity. "Albedo, and you're asking me that? Hahaha, that's funny," he said with a smile. "When the end is so close, we look for successors," he said gracefully. "So it is with everything, every house and building, even all that food you put in your mouth was developed by passing from generation to generation," he said with that smile. "I'm just trying to do the same as the rest of the world does," he finished saying with an expression of conviction. Sublimino was silent before those words. Apparently a new enemy for plumbers is going to be born, one which no one was going to be able to stop for anything in the universe. He just raised a beer in the form of respect to Albedo and Issei Haidu. On the road as the 2008 Dodge Challenger RT was going at maximum speed, where Issei Haidu was driving calmly, Elizabeth Lyons was in the co-driver's seat, Ingvild Leviathan was in the back seat, along with Artemisa and Office Ouroboros. Apparently Gondel was going to be busy with the upcoming fight at Odin's request. All shook their heads. Others like Valerie Lucifer could not go with him so as not to arouse suspicion. As for Artemis, no one suspects her since she is mainly seen traveling around the world. She cannot be in one place. If they were going to a location that very few people know, if it was mainly one of the bases abandoned by the plumbers, in that place the Red Dragon could train. "Elizabeth, Isama, what kind of training are you planning to have?" she asked curiously, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix only looked at her out of the corner of his eye for a few moments. "Issei, you're wrong, Elizabeth, we are all going to train to be able to improve our power," he said. This caught the attention of those present. "Well, I plan to achieve a new transformation," he said seriously. On whether he depended too much on the Omnitrix, which is why he thought about training its use with the boosted gear, on whether the Juggernaut drive was his strongest transformation at the moment, but he feels that this transformation was a double-edged sword. "Office. My Issei want to master the Juggernaut drive," she said with his expressionless tone, at which many looked at the Red Dragon with disbelief. "Issei. Yes, besides that it is difficult to maintain reason in such a transformation," he said seriously. "The best thing would be to create a subspecies of the balance breaker," he said calmly, "but it was going to be difficult to achieve the complete Juggernaut drive and the forbidden balance breaker." "Artemisa. But you thinks there will be enough time these days we have?" she said curiously, to which the Red Dragon remained silent. "Issei. No," he said sincerely, to which everyone turned to look. "Time is limited, but at least we are going to train enough for their bodies to withstand the coming war, since I won't be able to protect everyone," he said seriously. "Office. Besides, the training I will give you will be so demanding that you will want to hate me, but don't forget about why you train," she said seriously, to which each one nodded her head. "Ingvild. And if I want to be more useful, he specialized me more in long-distance combat. I feel that I will be a hindrance to Isama," she said, to which each nodded her head. From that they see that they were coming to a part that was in a bad state, but still they continued until they reached an old house that was in ruins. "Issei. This will be the place where we are going to train. Apparently he has enough to spend the next few days," he said seriously, to which the people present opened their eyes by that house. Slowly they got out of the car, where they saw that the house needed a remodel, or that's what all the girls thought, while Office Ouroboros only saw the whole place with an expressionless look. "Office. Let the training begin," he said with a serious look on his face. Skip time. Since they arrived, Office Ouroboros put each one in different training, and if Artemis was going to help them improve in the use of weapons, where Office mentioned that this was going to be useful for Elizabeth. Office, although this weekend was still superior to those present, she told them that flying should be something natural in Ingvild Leviathan and Elizabeth Lyons, where she unleashed gusts of wind that they had to endure each one not to fly out, while Issei should fly through them, as if it were the most normal thing. Elizabeth's light spears were too weak to be able to attack at close range, so together with Artemis for her to see the deficiency in only launching attacks without measuring the consequences. While Issei had to meditate to get into the depths of the boosted gear, where the souls of the previous carriers reside, in the morning. Artemis received news from Athena, where she reported the progress of the factions with the training of Dai, but it seems that his training was somewhat deficient, making it clear that they were underestimating their master. It was a pity that Athena was giving the information to a traitor of the factions. It seems that the corruption in Athena was progressing correctly. She knew that once the corruption is complete, it only takes a little push for her to see that following Issei is the best thing that can happen to her. After a few days, Sekiryuutei joined the training, where he slowly trained the magic of the book, in addition to physical training, so as not to always depend on his magic. She did not want to make the mistakes of some demons who believed themselves superior because of their magic. Since this was only the basic training to prepare the body of Ingvold Leviathan, Elizabeth Lyons and Sekiryuutei, since it became strange to them that the real training for them was inside a sphere. Issei. The gravity at which they are going to train each one will be different, mainly because of their current limits of each one. He said. This caught the attention of those present. First we start with Hakaz, you will be at a gravity 4 times higher than that of the earth. He said seriously, without accepting claims from the girl. Then he gave each one the gravity to which their bodies were going to be subjected, while Elizabeth was at a gravity 8 times higher than that of the earth. With Ingvold Leviathan, it would be at a gravity 15 times higher than the earth. While Artemis, along with Issei, her body was subjected to a gravity 30 times higher than the earth, where the red dragon had a little trouble standing up. With Artemis herself, she realized that gravity made her lose a great speed. The training was from lifting weights to dodging laser beams, which forced them to give everything of them. With Issei himself, could barely keep up with Artemisa without the balance breaker, or with some increase, this as long as Artemisa was not serious. The office trained in the gravity machine with a gravity 50 times higher than that of the earth, mainly to try to recover the power that was stolen from her if her clone Lilith was hidden, mainly so that the factions do not think about using her as she was used by Klepeth. While with Dai, he was being chased by Tannen himself. They were preparing his body to receive the power of the King Peace, which bothered him, but with the intention of humiliating his brother, he would do anything, and if he killed him, that was going to be considered a small accident on his part. He tried to start a conversation with Athena, but she ended up slapping him and not to approach her, unless it's because of things from her training. Zeus taught him the basics in thunder magic, but apparently his attacks were too simple. And if each leader taught him the basics, but the one who had it most difficult was Ajuka Beelzebub when he wanted to teach him strategy, since he doubted that Falbium would teach him in that field, but it seemed that his tactics were too deficient. While Issei was throwing punches in the air, while increasing the speed of his punches, Dai was complaining about his training. While Elizabeth was fighting with Ingvold, where the latter was dodging her light attacks, apparently Elizabeth's training with Artemis took effect. Ingvold. Perhaps it seems that now you can control the power of light to your liking, Elizabeth. She said, as she saw the aforementioned with her 2 pairs of wings on her back. Apparently the corruption in Elizabeth prevented her from getting more wings. Apparently Elizabeth could be underestimated by her rival, but that was going to cost them dearly, whoever decides to face her. Ingvold decided that she was going to choose to reach the power of a super devil in a different way. Maybe she wasn't born with that potential, but maybe she could reach that form by training. Her magic core seemed to grow with each day that she forced her core to go to its limit. The book that was given to Sekiryuutei contained ice spells that would make Seraphol Leviathans as a basic spell, but apparently such attacks required an enormous amount of magic. And who better to learn such magic than Ingvold Leviathan? Besides teaching them spells of other elements, the most useful would be the electric type attacks or learning poison magic to make their water spells toxic. Currently, it's been about 14 days, it was 7 days until the big event, but currently Issei was meditating, while in front of him was Office Ouroboros floating around him. Office. Apparently your power has increased greatly, but that little push is missing to release a part of your true power. She said coldly, before seeing that the red dragon was still meditating. Issei. I know, but apparently it's not that easy. If getting inside the boosted gear is easy, the complicated thing is talking to the previous hosts. He said with his eyes closed, since only 2 carriers refused to help the wielder of the Omnitrix, mainly because of the path he took. The first is Elsha, is a beautiful woman with long wavy blonde hair, which is decorated with an accessory on the head and light green eyes. She's wearing a light purple dress. The second is Belzard, is a handsome and muscular man with green hair and pink eyes. He is dressed fashionably as he wears a black noble uniform that has a red cape attached. And if they refused to talk to him, so Drake told him that they were both holding back their potential. There was only one way to do this, and that was to break their own limits. If they had the key, then he was going to create his own entrance to his potential. If he was going to break the rules that Albedo established for him, then he was going to do it, so he opened his eyes with a determined look. This caught the attention of those present, slowly directed his hand to the Omnitrix, which was in a kind of update. Knowing what his master was going to do, they quickly addressed him, but Office prevented them from passing for some reason. Issei. Ultra mode negative. He said in an electronic voice, where he did not make himself wait for what he was going to do. He entered the Omnitrix, but it was not like that. Instead of being able to see the Omnitrix symbol floating, there was the boosted with black and red patterns. Slowly they saw how it was changing its appearance. Inside the boosted gear, the two strongest hosts of the boosted gear were seen in front of them to Ultra Mode Negative, which was watching them intently, and that the host seemed disappointed with Issei Haidu for what he was doing. Elsha. Are you sure you want to do this, Haidu? But the galvanic mechamorph did not respond to their words. He just walked past them, but before he could knock on a door, he had to jump back. Since the one who attacked him was Belzard, apparently they were not going to make it easy for him. Belzard. Apparently you don't intend to reflect on the path you're taking. He said seriously, but the wielder of the Omnitrix slowly turned the dial of the Omnitrix. Diamond Head. He said calmly. Both Elsha and Belzard were on guard. It was going to be difficult to fight him. Right now I could use Ascalon's help. He thought, already knows that the fight was going to be one of the most difficult he was going to have today. And that he points with one of his hands to Elsha and with the other to Belzard, where both did not have time to cover themselves from the Diamond Head's attack. Issei. Out of my way, he said coldly. Elsha and Belzard were on the defensive, so they both looked at each other, whereupon two magic attacks went in the direction of the red dragon. Issei decided to jump on the attack. During his jump he decided to attack Elsha, which was not expected that the wielder of the Omnitrix could attack while in the air. Issei, what did you think, miss? He asked mockingly, to which Elsha barely got up. Belzard. You better not let your guard down, kid. He said seriously, before appearing in front of the red dragon, which opened his eyes with surprise. Apparently Belzard tried to punch him, but Diamond Head turned on the ground, until he turned his hand into a diamond sword and stabbed it into the ground. Issei. Thanks for the lesson. As he slowly gets up from the floor, now he really needed to end this. Negative chromastone. He shouted. This will be the last round. He said seriously, but you could hear the little disappointing in his voice. He slowly started walking to the past hosts of Drake, who were confused as to what he was going to do. He slowly extended his hands. Issei. I'm really sorry, but I have to do this, but I hope you'll forgive me in the afterlife. He said sadly, only to see how the red dragon slowly began to absorb their energy, to where they both began to glow. Elsha. I just hope you don't regret the path you're taking, Issei. She said sadly. She hugged him, which the wielder of the Omnitrix couldn't help but to accept the hug. Belzard. I know it will sound bad, but don't let anyone defeat you, kid. He said with a smile, and that the two shine, until they disappear completely. Now in front of the red dragon there was a chest. Issei. I'm sorry, Drake, I know they were your former hosts. He said sadly, before walking straight to the chest in front of him. Outside the boosted gear. They saw how the boosted gear shone brightly, where Office Ouroboros showed a smile to know that Issei managed to release a part of his potential. Office. Here he comes. She said with a smile, as she felt how an overwhelming power began to be released in a wild way. At that, the people present began to listen to the red dragon's voice, while the aura was slowly stopping. I am the one who awakens from the illusion. I am the crimson true Sekiryuutei, who will show you the true domination. I will protect the dreams, and I shall be one with infinite. I shall become the true Crimson God Emperor. And I promise you all, to show you that there is nothing to be afraid of. Creating my own path, I will open up hope for people who have not known happiness. Infinity full power, overdrive. Drake's voice echoed, before seeing a crimson flash glow brightly, which made the girls cover their eyes, all but Office. None of the people present could say a word when they saw that Issei Haidu had reached a new level. On the one hand, Office looked at him with smile, proud of her mate, before approaching the red dragon. Office. Ice, remember, you must only use it as a last resort, it still needs to balance. You must do something with the power that is being used up violently. She said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix nodded at his mate. Greg. Apparently, partner, you have another ace up your sleeve. He said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix only grinned. Issei. Yeah, I can feel it, but I feel that it's not time yet. He said with a smile. At that the armor disappears all at once. Issei slowly falls to the ground in front, where Office holds him so that he does not go face to the ground. Office. I'm happy for you, my Issei. She said. Slowly Office turned her eyes to the Omnitrix, which seemed to glow for a few moments. Office. Apparently you did it. She said in a monotone tone, but with a small smile. And that the Omnitrix shines slowly, apparently it was being recalibrated. After a few minutes the new appearance of the Omnitrix could be observed. Hackers. We should inform Albedo that the Omnitrix has finished updating. She said, to which the present nodded their heads. That day Issei Haidu's training was suspended because when he entered the boosted gear, he somehow also hurt his life force, so he must recover for now. On Olympus. Athena was confused about what was happening to her. First she put aside the investigation of the Sekiryuutei, still sighed. For some reason she was desperate to be seeing the same memory over and over again. Another problem that happened to her is that now she always tried to look the best presentable. Another problem is that every time she listened to something having to do with the Sekiryuutei she paid as much attention as possible, but for some reason she felt angry to hear certain people trashing Issei. Athena. What is happening to me right now? She thought with frustration at not understanding what was happening. She tried to look for an explanation of what was happening to her, but at that moment an idea crosses her mind. Athena. I can't be falling in love with him, besides I only know him by a simple image. She said incredulously. Besides he's not ugly, I mean. She quickly shook her head. What the hell am I saying? She thought to herself, frustrated. She slowly got up from where she was sitting. She needed fresh air, not knowing that the earrings she had on sparkled. When she left her temple, she could see a beautiful garden, so she set out to walk through it until she reached a fountain where she could see her reflection, the necklace and earrings that Artemisa gave her. For some reason she never took them off. That confused her. Maybe it was because she didn't want to lose sight of them. For some reason she felt Athena. I don't know what's happening to me, I just hope it's nothing bad. She said calmly, since she was sure of something and it wasn't anything physical. At that she closes her eyes, where the decision she told the leaders to have the Sekiryuutei on her side came to mind. For some reason she hated herself for remembering every single word that came out of her lips. Athena. Will I be doing the right thing, she questioned, then she slowly let out a heavy sigh. In the underworld. In the Ajuka Stadium, the current Mayu Beelzebub was gathered, along with some members of Grozobur, where they were preparing the traps to weaken Issei Haidu. Elsewhere Gondal was checking each trap with a serious look on her face. Gondal. These traps are hard to detect, but too bad for you, I work for Isama. She thought coldly, as she changes and adds some changes to the traps. She slowly turns around, only to see Auden, who seemed to be watching the progress of the advance of the traps for the fight. Gondal. Auden don't know, at this rate in about 2 days they will be complete. She said, to which Auden nodded with relief at those words. Auden. I'm glad. He said gratefully to Gondal. Gondal. Yes, in this way the fight will be over for Haidu Issei. She said proudly. But of course it is not for that brat. She thought with a mocking tone, to which she hit it with her usual serious look. In another part of the stadium was the Seraphim Gabriel walking with an empty gaze, where she had a sad look of what was happening. She was also disappointed with her brother. He was going to make the same mistake. As for Gabriel, now she lives in silence. She realized the true color of the world. Gabriel. Apparently we are not different from the devils. She thought, while tears of pain came out of her eyes. She slowly started using her ability to read the hearts of people who were only looking for their own benefit. Slowly she brought her hand to her face, where a creepy smile was drawing on her face. The feeling of revenge was growing inside her. Her wings flickered for a moment between black and gold. She slowly brought her hand to a mirror, where she could see her reflection and gently touched the mirror. Gabriel. At the end there, I'm not perfect, maybe falling is not so bad, after all the sins have different meanings, and I could be free from these bonds. She thought curiously, while a small spark of life was seen for a few moments in her eyes. With her other hand she created a light spear, where she aimed at a reflection, but then the light spear disappears. Gabriel. After all I'm already dead weight to the others. She thought sarcastically. Killing out of necessity to get someone's attention will change the way I observe the world. She thought curiously. Slowly she sees her eyes empty of life, where she brings a hand to her face with a look of sadness. She felt that something was not right with her. She wanted to fix that problem. The Seraphim Gabriel, when she saw how Elizabeth was corrupted by Issei Haidu with that transformation that looked like a mummy, she did not realize a small detail, and that is that from that little corrupted aura a small part entered into her. If it was not enough to corrupt her completely, but with the passing days she began to question why she was fighting. Giving way to her, slowly revealing herself with the passing of those days to a point of no return. Maybe she doesn't have dark abilities like Elizabeth, but now she could decide whether to be a pure angel or a fallen angel. She could commit any sin just by changing her aura, but apparently being dead in life, she was looking for a reason to exist and depend on him. Gabriel. At least Haidu got what he deserves, it's a pity I wasn't there. She thought with anger and sadness that she also believed every lie of Haidu. Maybe playing with them a little is entertaining. She thought with some curiosity, before thinking about something in particular, but an idea came to the mind of the strongest woman in heaven. She slowly heard the news of what happened at the Kuo Academy from the lips of her queen Griselda Corda. At that the name of 3 girls in particular came to mind and she couldn't help but smile at the news. Gabriel. It's a pity that no one is going to miss them. She thought with a faint tone of sadness. It will be enough for me to punish them for their sins of treating Ai-sama that way. She thought while a sinister smile was formed on her face. Maybe she should keep pretending to recover and returning to her innocent attitude would be the right thing to do, but in reality it would just be acting to make the faction suffer in the name of Issei. Day 15. Issei Haidu is seen resting on a bed peacefully. Ingvold Leviathan slept on the left side where Issei Haidu slept in the middle, while on the right side was Elizabeth Lyons, while the goddess Artemis slept peacefully on Issei. Office. I don't understand why they sleep that way. She said confused as she floated on the bed. There was nothing strange that she slept with them, but that Ingvold, Artemis and Elizabeth slept naked with him, that's what seemed to her the strangest thing in the world. Greg. I wonder what people will say when they see you sleeping with them like this. He thought to himself because of how his host was treated. Mainly a female goddess who hates men. He thought with a mocking tone to himself whether he wanted to see the reaction of Zeus or Azazel and Aden. In that, the door is heard knocking for a few moments, where Office, knowing who it is, tells the person to come in, letting Hakiz Kusurub see, who passes into the room. Hakiz. I came to check on Issei after what he did. She said curiously, without looking straight to the bed. Office. It's you. She said to herself, leaving Hakiz confused. Why don't you look at him with your own eyes? She asked, before pointing to the bed. At that moment Hakiz raised an eyebrow, slowly turned his gaze to the bed, where a blush was covering Hakiz's face, from which she quickly covered her eyes upon witnessing such a scene. Office. They are not marked by Issei, and also me, yet. But I shall get my Issei mark on me in the future. She said calmly, while making the sign of peace, with her little fingers. Hakiz's eyes slowly turned into swirls. She was already about to faint from that unnecessary information, so she decided to quickly leave the room, while being followed by Office Ouroboros. After a few minutes Issei woke up, but for some reason he could not move his hands, besides that something was on his chest. He slowly moved his hands, where he felt 2 soft pillows, for which he gave a light shake with his hands. Ingvold. Ai-sama, we can't do it here. Murmured sleepily, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix opens his eyes with surprise to see that Ingvold was on his left side. Elizabeth. Wait, Ai-sama. She moaned, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix just gulped because of the situation he was in. But slowly he sees the sheets moving on top of him, and then he sees Artemisa come out with a smile so tender that it gave the red dragon a shiver because of that smile. Artemisa. Ai-sama. She said with that tender smile, as she lay her head on the chest of the red dragon, where she could hear Issei's heartbeat. He did not know the reason why Artemisa was pretty attached to him, more specifically to all of them since he turned them into his servant. Greg. It's not strange at all, partner. He told him, which was confused by those words. Attracting the opposite gender is something normal, along with the corrodium merge every time you transform into the mummy, and it seems that it makes them completely devoted to you, partner. He explained calmly. Issei. You're trying to say that they were attracted by my power. She thought in disbelief. Greg. In the case of Elizabeth, Gondola and Artemisa, well, with the descendant of Leviathan, it is a different case, since she loves you deeply, and apparently only that feeling grows more, but Office, she was always attracted to you from the start. He explained to his host, to which he only let out a small sigh. We dragons consider different things like our treasures, gold, jewelry or something of value, but for you they are your treasure, and you know that very well, or am I wrong? Apparently Drake was right, if they were his, it sounded bad, but that's what he felt, and he wasn't going to let anyone hurt them. Artemisa. Ai-sama. Said, while pouting, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix only shook his head. Artemisa's attitude. Issei. Where was that goddess who hated men with all her being? He told her with a mocking tone, to which she sat down on top of the red dragon. Artemisa. Only for man who are not you, you are the only one in my heart. She said, before approaching the red dragon and stealing a kiss, which he could not do anything to reject because he was imprisoned by the other 2 girls. After a few seconds Artemisa separated from the kiss, leaving an Issei with his eyes wide open, to which she silently removes herself from over the red dragon, to subsequently leave the room, leaving Issei along with the other 2 girls. Drake. Ladies and gentlemen, here Drake reporting in the latest news. The goddess Artemis had declared her love for Issei Haidu and also kissed him. I repeat, she has kissed him, it's not a prank. He said laughing, but apparently Issei did not react to what happened. After a few minutes the red dragon was able to react to Artemis's kiss, where he slowly raised his head and let his head fall again. Issei. What just happened? He's wondering himself what happened a few minutes ago. Drake. Come on, be a man and get ready to destroy her insides. he said innocently, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix ignored him. Skip time. Issei Haidu could be seen coming down the stairs, where Hack is next to Office and Artemis were having breakfast, where the red dragon sat next to Artemis, but before he could say anything Office got up from his seat to sit on Issei's lap, yep, the throne of the infinite dragon god. Issei. Good morning. He said with a small smile, to which the greeting was returned by 3. Office. My mate, your training this time will be focused on your new transformation. She said, before taking the spoon to her mouth. Issei. You're right, I realize that if I use it during a fight, it will just drain my stamina. He said seriously, while patting her head, to which Office nodded at those words, enjoying the touch of her Issei. Issei. You're right. He said, which attracted the attention of those present at those words. Artemisa. What are you going to do against the remaining ones? She said, before resting her head on Issei's shoulder. Issei. There is only one way, and that is there will be many funerals that you are going to attend. He said coldly, while putting a sinister look on his face. The people who are going to take care of are the following. He said, to which Hackis couldn't help but smile at what Issei said. Hackis? And how much time do you have? She asked curiously, to which the red dragon looked at her for a few moments. Issei. Before the fight, let's see how strong their faith is. He said mockingly, to which the 2 girls nodded their heads. Artemis. It's strange that you want to attack them earlier, but if you attack Albedo now it can raise strong suspicions to the leaders. She said seriously, thinking about a specific person who is her sister Athena. Issei. I'll just pretend to be attacking him, which you will be my cover. While pointing to Hackis Kusarab, who opened her eyes. Our attack will be to the underworld, but not to any place, but one where the reconstruction works are being carried out. He said with that crazy smile. Hackis Kusarab was getting an idea of what place it was, while Office continued to eat without paying attention to them. Office. You plan to use dark magicians as bombs. She said to the wielder of the Omnitrix, to which the latter simply shook his head. Issei. No, there may be another loose end, so I have the person, or rather the perfect alien. He said, to which everyone paid attention to his plan. I'll just say that it will be a kind of natural accident. He said. Office. So you must create 2 clones. She said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix nodded. While you train your new form. She said, to which the wielder of the Omnitrix nodded. Issei. Everything that goes up has to come down. He said seriously, to which they knew that it was going to be the biggest blow that the red dragon was going to give. If your sister found out, will make Athena open her eyes just like I did to you. He said with a smile. No one will be able to expect it, least of all from you. He said seriously, to which Artemis quickly replied. Artemisa. Count on me. She said decisively, to be useful to Issei. A day later, in the backyard. Issei had a serious look on his face. In front of him stood Hackis Kusarab, Artemis, Ingvold Leviathan, Elizabeth Lyons and Office Ouroboros. Each one looked at him with smile and how the red dragon activates the Omnitrix. Issei. It's time to start with the real chaos. He thought, before moving the dial of the Omnitrix, where he was looking for the indicated alien. When he found it, in slow motion he pressed the Omnitrix symbol, where it was seen how a crimson glow surrounded the red dragon. Negative echo echo. He creates several clones, for a moment later create 3 clones of himself. The clones slowly moved the Omnitrix symbol from their chest, where they took the human form of Issei Haidu. They looked attentively at each other, they smiled ominously. Elizabeth slowly approached one of the clones, where she held out her hand to him where the displacement mask is located, which he took carefully, to place it on his face, where his appearance is changed. Albedo. It's time to start a new world. He said seriously, where one of the clones approached him, where he slowly moved the dial of the Omnitrix. The girls were surprised by Issei's new transformation, even if he was only a clone, which slowly positioned itself behind Albedo. Ingvold Leviathan was in charge of creating a magic circle that takes them to the underworld. Apparently Ingvold could go by magic circle directly without taking another of his routes. Then it was the turn of Hackis Kusarab, who left with the last clone of Issei Haidu still place that no one was ever going to think. Slowly the wielder of the Omnitrix turned to see the other girls, where Issei Haidu returned to his human form. Issei. With this they are going to learn their lesson in the hard way. He said coldly, slowly turned around to start walking to the training capsule followed by the other girls. In the underworld, Citri territory. The girl walking to the Seraphol Memorial Hospital. The person walking to that direction is Valerie Lucifer. She was walking with a look of coldness on her face. Valerie. I'm sorry big sister, but now I serve Isama and I have to fulfill his orders. She thought coldly as she looked the hospital in the distance. Guo Town. You can see Yui Kadis, Kaori Murayama and Ika Kiryu, who were tied up in chairs with gags in their mouths. In front of them was a beautiful woman with wavy ankle-length blonde hair that is loose and chest-length strands of hair that hang on both sides. Her eyes were covered by a black bandage, fleshy pink lips and a voluptuous body. She was wearing an outfit that of a nun or like that of a priestess of the church, but white with gold details. Her outfit seemed very provocative. The most scared was Ika when she recognized that beautiful woman. Ika. Why is the Seraphim Gabriel here? She asked scared. Seeing the seraph she could notice that she seemed to have a disgusted grimace on her face. Gabriel. I'm really disappointed with myself, but more with you. She said angrily, but the three girls saw that tears were running out of the bandage, which were slowly falling to the ground. I plan to silence each one like you as you silenced my new reason for living. She said coldly, before Murayama and Kadis saw with horror and surprise, as 12 beautiful white wings came out of her back, along with a golden halo floating over her head. She slowly walked behind the girls, until she hugged Kaori and Yui, where she looked them with a look of innocence on her face. Gabriel. He was a good person. She said, while her smile faded. We isolated him in solitude. He wanted to be loved and respected. We denied him, but I understood that the real villain was us. She said angrily, then stopped hugging them. Ika knew the person she was referring to. Tears were falling from her eyes, knowing that she was one of the ones who caused pain in a real hero. Gabriel. Do you know which is the monster that each person fears the most? She said with curiosity. It is the same one they created. Each one of us has created a monster, and when we are afraid, we seek help to solve our own mistakes. We do not want to accept the consequences, but everything in this life is paid, no matter how much we try to hide or do good, because karma will always find us. She said coldly. Slowly she was creating a spear of light between her hands, which passed between the skin of her victims, where she launched. Kadis, she screamed with a gag covering her mouth, her eyes widened in horror at the sight of her friend Kaori's head lying on the ground. Ika gulped slowly, she never seen this before, so she looked away in terror. Gabriel. In a short time you are going to share the same fate as her. She said with a dark smile. With Albedo. Issei or Albedo was looking at several devils gathered in one place, which were moving materials from one place to another. In a specific part was Albedo observing everything with a look of coldness. It's time to put everything in motion, we don't have much time. He said seriously. This being is a 3-meter-tall red alien with a robot-like armored body. His head is similar to a Greek Corinthian helmet with 2 ears, which gives him the appearance of an armadillo. Armadillo has a grey tail and parts of a jackhammer on his elbows, wrists and hands, which creates the impression that he is an excavating robot. Despite their mechanical appearance, all these aspects are, in fact, biological and natural of their race. This one began to dig in silence, and if he had the goal of destroying the place from below, and that Albedo not seeing any trace of this alien, simply pulled up the right sleeve of his sweatshirt, where he slowly began to turn the dial of the Omnitrix. Albedo. It's a pity that I hid some good memories in this place. He said sadly, while a crimson glow surrounds him. Negative Kanonbald. He said coldly, before taking his sphere shape, where he left in the direction of a building. And that many demons saw a red sphere go to a building under construction, which some recognized from the reports, but before they could do anything, they saw it pass in the middle of a building, where it destroyed a wall from which it bounces to go against another wall of a nearby building. Skip time. The DXD group minus Valerie Lucifer and Ingvald Leviathan arrived at the area 2 hours later where the attack was taking place, but when they arrived, a person fell to the ground on his knees. This person was none other than Sona Sitri, who could not believe that the Oros Academy was now just rubble. And that slowly you can hear the footsteps of a person walking in their direction. Slowly everyone got on guard, where everyone sees still 16-year-old boy with white hair, pale skin, red eyes, black eyebrows, and what stands out the most was his red jacket with black stripes. It's a pity that they see me this way, but at least I had fun in this place. He said with a mocking tone, to which everyone slowly opens their eyes. Riaz. Who the fuck are you? She asked angrily, to which the guy just looked at her with boredom look. I am your current problem, rather your current enemy that endangers your precious peace. He said with a mocking tone, while raising his right hand, showing the negative Omnitrix. Saji. You. He shouted angrily, while pointing it out. The others were in shock to see in front of them Albedo with a human appearance. Albedo. Leaving the attitude of the lapdog, they are surprised at my flight into this beautiful place. He said with outstretched hands. Some gritted their teeth when they saw the impudence of that guy. Sona Sitri had a lost look when she saw what was previously the Oros Academy. Sikvera. Why are you doing all this? She asked with suppressed anger, to which Albedo just shook his head. Albedo. That's an excellent question, Miss Agares. He said with a mocking tone, while making a bow. Unfortunately it's not yet time to tell you my motives. He said. Riaz. you will pay for what you have done. She said angrily, as she creates a magic circle in her hands and from this a sphere of destruction is formed. Rias fell silent on her back as she felt the ground begin to shake aggressively. Everyone quickly put out their wings, while others helped those who could not fly who were Lefay Pendragon, Arthur among others, but Saji had to take Sona who was still in shock. But they saw how Albedo was calmly on the ground while he crossed his arms. They did not understand what was happening right now. Albedo. It's funny to see the look of despair on their face. He thought with a smile on his face. And that he slowly observes how some parts of Oros were slowly falling to the ground, carefully seeing that they were important areas. He put a smile at the thought of the look that the leaders would put on. Slowly he feels that someone was going in his direction, to which he raises an eyebrow when he sees that it was Dai Haidu, who showed a smile of superiority on his face. Dai. I'll show the true power I have now. He said with an arrogant smile, as he appears in front of Albedo with the intention of giving him a punch in the stomach. To which Albedo jumps back. Apparently Dai got a great power, but apparently that power was not his, so he raised an eyebrow. Albedo. If the mass don't intervene in their territory, they just want to see if this idiot has managed to overcome me. He thought with annoyance. It's not funny to him that they try to look for his weaknesses. At that moment Dai Haidu manages to connect a punch to his stomach, which makes him spit out saliva. He cursed under his breath for letting his guard down. In himself he just took a deep breath. Albedo. Yes, you became strong, but apparently it was only with a power that does not belong to you. He said with boredom while he dusted himself off. Which by instinct made Dai Haidu open his eyes, but after a few minutes he just drew a smile on his face. Dai. Are you jealous? He asked mockingly. Am I stronger than you now? He drew a smile. Albedo. Not at all. He said calmly. It just seemed strange to me that people have mercy on a scumbag like you. He said with a mocking tone. But if you want to play with me I'll give you to try something. He said with a mocking smile. He slowly activated the Omnitrix until he looked for the alien he wanted, and that a crimson glow surrounded him. This attracted the attention of those present when they saw the alien in front of them. A negative feedback is back baby haha. He said with his arms crossed, some open when remembering the alien who beat up the fallen angels. Dai. Don't think that by transforming into that creature you will have any advantage, he said angrily, then lashed out against feedback. But negative feedback he wasn't fighting with Dai Haidu, he was just dodging him with a mocking look on his face. Albedo. Love ends when betrayal begins. He thought, before looking up and seeing two specific people, maybe giving a different blow to the features or rather to the heart is more than enough. So he quickly gave a shock to Dai Haidu, which thanks to his sacred gear, was going to be a good lightning rod. His attack was simply a distraction attack, then he launched an attack on a pile of rubble, where a huge smoke screen was raised. Time after. The DXD group was looking for Albedo by groups, since he could not be far away. Among those groups were Kusha Abaddon and Coriana and Realfus. Both were attentive to what was happening around them, since Oros was in chaos, some areas were damaged that the place no longer had repairs. Coriana. That guy is annoying, I don't understand that he wins by doing this. She said upset that innocent people die. Kusha. I don't know either Coriana, but this guy seems to know our weaknesses. She said with a concentrated look. Coriana. If you say so, but I think that guy might have already escaped, don't you think? Kusha. Maybe you're right, the best thing will be to go back. She said with frustration of not finding anything. When they were going back, they didn't realize that there were bandages under them, which caught the two girls off guard. They didn't know what to do about this. It must have been a bad joke. They tied them up, and others covered their mouths so that they wouldn't scream. And that they saw without being able to believe a mummy. The mummy's body is formed by bandages, adding to some typical Egyptian accessories, such as a kind of diadem on his head. The bandages form a hollow body, but of great strength. Albedo. I present you ladies, negative mummy. He said calmly, while he had his hands outstretched. The two girls were trying to move. Slowly he was bringing them closer to him, where quickly each of them tried once again to free themselves, but their efforts were not enough. Albedo. I need people who want to follow the same vision that I have of a much better world. He said seriously. But I know well each one of you who refused to help me fulfill this goal. He said. So I'm going to convince you in the best way. He said with an innocent tone, which both of them did not understand. Slowly the mummy started to uncover his chest. The two girls didn't know what was happening, but they had a bad feeling of what could happen. Albedo. I present to you the one who helped me convince several people. I present to you the Corrodium. He said with an innocent tone, who were getting an idea what the purple crystal that was on his chest did. Bare-eyed, their screams were silenced by the mummy's bandages. The glass shone brightly for a few seconds. The two girls began to cry from the helplessness of not being able to do anything against this guy. Skip time. The whole DXD group was gathering. At that they noticed that Kusha Abaddon and Koryana Andreelfus were walking in their direction with a tired look on their face, where some realized that they had not found anything. Sererg. Apparently they didn't find anything about him or any trace. He said, to which Kusha simply shook her head. Kusha. Apparently he managed to escape from this place. She said, to which some were upset to realize that their efforts to search for him would be useless. That bastard is a coward. He said annoyed, seeing himself as useless for such a pathetic demonstration. Tsubaki. You don't understand, or maybe you are too much of an idiot. She said with an annoyed look, attracting everyone's attention. This was a planned attack, it was not by simple chance. She said coldly. Julio. What do you mean? He asked with curiosity. Tsubaki. He knew that this place was under reconstruction, so destroying it would be a big blow to some people. She said, while seeing her king, who was still with a lost look. To which some clenched their fists in anger. Kusha. She has a point. She thought as she agreed with her. I like her way of thinking, but leaving that aside, it's time for us to leave. Said a voice in Kusha's mind. Kusha. Of course, master. She said with devotion in his mind. Sererg. The best thing will be to inform the leaders that it was all in vain. He said with frustration. Koryana. We can leave, master. She thought with frustration as she listened to those present talking, including Sererg Bale. Yes, it's better to leave this place, that only makes me disgusted. Said a voice in Koryana's mind. Since two aliens, or rather Albedo and Issei, were using them as means of transportation, they would not have agreed before, but Albedo made them such a tempting offer that they could not refuse to accept. At the Seraphil hospital. Valerie Lucifer was observing Lavinia Renai's room. She was still in a coma. She slowly sat down next to her, while a look of sadness adorns her face. Valerie. You know, Lavinia, I spent good times with you, you were a great big sister for me. She said sadly, while taking Lavinia's hand. But from one moment to another she releases her hand with a look of coldness if she starts to get up from where she was sitting. Valerie. I saw Ma open my eyes, he gave me a new purpose. She said, while tears were falling from her eyes. I intend to follow his orders, that is my purpose as one of his most faithful followers. She said sadly, before a syringe appears in her hand. Slowly she approached the infusion bag, slowly uncapped the syringe, and without hesitation she stuck it in the bag, where he emptied the contents of the syringe. Valerie. I hope you have fun in your next big adventure, big sister. She said coldly, while watching how slowly Lavinia Renai starts to squirm. She removes the syringe, where she quickly puts it in a pocket dimension. Without much haste, she sees her reflection in the mirror and rehearses for a few seconds a look of sadness, until she finds the perfect one. Doctor, she shouted from the rooftops, where he left the room to get help as soon as possible. The doctors quickly arrived at Lavinia Renai's room, where they told Valerie Lucifer to stay outside. She had a sad look, but with her hands she covered her mouth, where you could see a smile to see that her performance went perfectly. In Kuo. The Seraphim Gabriel was calmly cleaning the spilled blood on her clothes, while behind her are the body of the three decapitated girls, but especially the body of Sekiryuutei, who had several spears stuck in her body. Gabriel. Now what can I do with their bodies? She said with boredom, as she sees the bodies of the three girls with their heads lying on the cold floor. Maybe I could have a little more fun, if only with their bodies. She said calmly, as she approached the bodies. She has planned to do her good deed of the day. She was going to give a nice gift to a girl, after all, for this girl blood was a delicacy. Gabriel. If they can be useful when they are no longer in this world with the living. He said with a smile, slowly removed the blindfold from her eyes, revealing lifeless eyes. Maybe Elizabeth can help me become a follower of Issei. He said. At night, Haidu residence. The DXD group arrives at the house that has become their base. Haidu had to stay in the underworld at the request of the mass, in that they see how someone was leaving the kitchen with some dishes. No one wants to stay to eat. Said a voice that attracted the attention of those present, who slowly turned around, only to see the Seraphim Gabriel with some dishes. Irina. Lady Gabriel. She said with emotion to see that the Seraphim Gabriel had completely recovered. That news gladdens those present. But there was something that made them see their illusions shatter in an instant, so that reality hit them with all its might, and that was a black blindfold covering their eyes. Some did not realize that something was coming out of the bodies of Kusha Abaddon and Koryana Andreelfus, where both smiled to learn that both Albedo and Issei managed to escape. Gabriel. By the way, I would like to talk a little with Asia about something important. She said with that friendly tone characteristic of her. Asia? Sure, Lady Gabriel, if it's about something important, she said confused, to which Gabriel slowly nodded her head. Gabriel. Of course, Asia, I hope it doesn't bother you, young Bale, that you also want to talk to Kusha in private. She said with a friendly tone, which confused those present. Sererg. Of course not. he said without noticing what's going on around him. Gabriel. Thank you. She said with an innocent tone, too innocent. Underworld, Gremory territory. All the leaders of different factions were gathered while looking at Dai Haidu's memories, more specifically his fight against Albedo, but there was nothing important other than he just dodged and looked for the right moment to hit Dai Haidu. Issei. That damn transformation. He said angrily, recalling the humiliation that his faction and close ones received at the hands of negative feedback. Athena. Apparently Miss Shinra's reports were correct that all this was planned. She said earnestly, attracting the attention of the leaders. Ajuka. The worst thing is that there is nothing, but at least we can see his true appearance. He said seriously, to which they reluctantly agreed. Auden. But they don't think he made it look easy, his face could have kept it hidden longer. He said seriously, to which many looked at each other. Maybe it's a message for someone. He said, to which many gave the reason for that thought. Athena. Now with this I will see with my own eyes what relationship Albedo has with Issei to work as a team. She thought with a smile, since she sent some people to follow Issei. She was sure that there was something suspicious between them, so she was impatient to hear something about Issei slipping out of her side at the same time the Albedo attack was carried out, or that he was still hiding wherever he went. Surziches. Moving on to another topic, the traps were placed in perfect condition. He said seriously, to which many understood what it was about. It just needs some magic to be loaded for the big day. He said seriously. Issei. That's good news, now the problem will be like dealing with Issei Haidu. He said, to which many nodded their heads. Zeus. What do you mean Mao Lucifer? He asked seriously. Ajuka. He refers to how we are going to keep him aligned in our war against Albedo. He said seriously, to which those present looked at each other. By revealing that Issei Haidu was a kind-hearted person and knowing that he is the real hero we cannot dismiss him as if nothing had happened. He said, to which everyone knew that he was right. Surziches. In the best case is that we try to earn his forgiveness. He said sadly in his words. Zeus. Or erase all his memories that we treated him in the worst way. He said, to which no one could believe those words of Zeus himself. Athena. Are you serious? She thought. Looks we are the real villains. She thought with anger, then blinked for a few moments without remembering what just happened in her mind. Michael. In the end we will have no choice but to make one of those decisions as the final decision. He said regretfully, seeing himself in a hard place. Surziches. That's right, we'll have to call the DXD group in a moment, he said seriously, to which those present nodded their heads. They quickly saw how Grafia rushes in with a worried look on her face, which puzzled Surziches because of his wife's attitude. Grafia. Surziches Sama, an accident has just happened while Albedo's attack was taking place. She said sadly, drawing the attention of those present. Surziches. What are you talking about? He asked. Grafia. Miss Lavinia Renai had a cardiac arrest in the afternoon, this caused her heart to stop. She said, which made Issei's eyes open in horror. Nothing could be done, she's dead Surziches Sama. She said, this left more than one in shock by such a revelation. The end is near. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.